Chapter 1701. And Yuyan saw that the quilt was moving and quickly pressed it with her hand. Ning Shu said, "I'm fine. I don't need to go to the hospital." "Thank you." Ning Shu asked again, "You really don't need to go to the hospital. You should be giving birth soon. You should go to the hospital in this situation," Ning Shu said. And Yuyan should be able to understand what he was trying to say since he had already said so much. No one wanted to do anything to her child. Even if it was chopped up to eat snake soup, it would still hurt its teeth. And Yuyan still insisted on not going to the hospital, so Ning Shu didn't bother to say anything. She had already said that if it was really inflamed or something happened, it was none of her business. Why did the union of a human and a snake give birth to an egg instead of a human? Was it because humans and monsters were in an animal state when they were pregnant? Ning Shu looked at An Yuyan's pale face. "This is the last time I'm asking you. Do you want to go to the hospital?" An Yuyan shook her head. "I'm fine. If I go out, there will be monsters chasing after me. I don't want to go to the hospital." Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu had originally wanted to send An Yuyan to the hospital to prevent her from having any major health problems. She had seen the pain of childbirth and felt as if she had walked through the gates of hell. Moreover, the eggshell was still in her body. However, An Yuyan didn't accept it. Ning Shu wasn't annoyed. Her body was hers. It was fine if she didn't take care of it. If she wanted to kill someone, these people wouldn't be able to fight back. "Then have a good rest," Ning Shu said lightly and closed the door when he went out. Ning Shu stood at the door and released his mental strength to check the situation in the room. Two snakes, one black and one white, came out of the quilt and sat on it. The little black snake said to An Yuyan, "Mommy, are you feeling well? Do you want to go to the hospital? The eggshell is in your body. It's not good for your health." The little girl quickly said, "Yes, Mommy. You'd better go to the hospital. Isn't that blind eagle taking you to the hospital? When you go to the hospital, my brother and I will escape first and find a place to hide." When An Yuyan heard the little loli's words, she was stunned. She whispered, "Where do you think you're going?" "I'm going to find Daddy. This blind eagle will definitely attack us." "Mommy, don't worry. One of us will stay behind to protect you," Little Black said to An Yuyan. "Which one of us is going to look for Daddy?" The little black snake looked at his sister. "I told you to cultivate diligently, but you didn't. What are you going to do now?" "Brother, you only know how to talk about me. Why don't we take Mommy with us? Let's leave together." Little Black Snake thought for a moment. "That's good too. If we leave this place, I can also protect Mommy. Let's go find Daddy now." An Yuyan suddenly felt that she had a backbone. She touched her eldest son and said, "Okay, I'll listen to you." Ning Shu stood outside the house and observed the situation inside with his spiritual power. He couldn't help but rub his eyebrows. What was the situation now? She was bringing the two children to find their father. What if they found it? What would happen after they successfully joined forces? People could be gentle and soft, but they should also have a bottom line. She was raped, gave birth to the children, and then went to find a man. Although An Yuyan was an adult, she was led by the nose by the two children. She didn't feel that there was anything wrong with what the Snake King did. Under the influence of the two children, the seed of affection was planted in An Yuyan's heart. The Qing dynasty was already gone. How could this kind of thinking of being faithful to one person be passed down? However, the Snake King was very strong. Even if An Yuyan wanted to hide, she couldn't. If she couldn't resist, she had to bear it. Besides, the Snake King's strength was also very strong. He was good-looking and was a good man. Even if she didn't love him now, she would eventually fall in love with him. A man's love was directed to the stomach. A woman's love was directed to the stomach. A woman would always have a special feeling for a man who was as light as her skin. A man could be ruthless, but a woman really couldn't. Moreover, she gave birth to 2 children. Since they planned to leave, they should leave quickly. However, if they left, the Snake King wouldn't come. She had some debts to settle with the Snake King. Otherwise, she would have to look for the Snake King all over the world. Ning Shu touched his chin and pondered. Well, it was impossible for An Yuyun and her 3rd child to leave for the time being. Because An Yuyun's body was very weak now. The eggshell in the body was like a placenta that was stuffed in the body and not taken out. Moreover, not only was there eggshell, but there was also the egg white. If these things were left in the body and not cleaned up, would they stink? Especially when the egg white was high in protein. The smell of rotting was called ass. When An Yuyun was in confinement, Ning Shu made his own food and made some digestible food for An Yuyun. It wasn't easy for a woman to give birth, but it didn't mean that Ning Shu liked An Yuyun. When the 2 snakes saw Ning Shu, they would hide under the quilt. Ning Shu couldn't be bothered with them. He already knew that they would come out. Moreover, at night, they would sneak out of the room to look for food. Although these 2 children had big appetites, they could eat anything raw. Eat my food, live on my bed, and don't give me a good look. When the 2 brats sneaked out again, Ning Shu pinched a snake's head with one hand. With their heads pinched, the 2 snakes wrapped around Ning Shu's wrist. Where did these snakes come from? Ning Shu swung the 2 snakes around, pinching their heads with one hand and pulling their tails with the other. Oh, they're very elastic, Ning Shu said with a smile. The 2 little snakes were played with by Ning Shu. They gritted their teeth and didn't say a word, just like ordinary snakes. They were afraid that Ning Shu and the others would eat them. Ning Shu swung the snakes around and said thoughtfully, well, let's make snake soup. Ning Shu pinched the 2 snakes and went to the kitchen. There were kitchen knives on the chopping board, scaring the 2 little snakes. Ning Shu put the little white snake in the rice cooker and covered the pot. The little white snake couldn't open it. Ning Shu looked at the little black snake in his hand. Let me see where the snakes are. Are there 2 of them? The little black snake was dumbfounded, then it began to struggle violently. This eagle was a pervert, raping and molesting young children. Mommy, save me, save me. The little black snake had no choice but to ask his mommy for help. It wasn't that he didn't want to escape, but he couldn't. He was caught by the eagle and couldn't break free from his control. This eagle had some strength. An Yuyun was sleeping when she heard her son's cry for help. She quickly got up, but her stomach hurt. An Yuyun didn't even have time to put on her shoes and ran barefoot to the kitchen door. When she saw her son being caught by Ning Shu, her face turned ashen. Let him go, let him go. An Yuyun was like a lioness protecting her cub. She snatched the little black snake from Ning Shu and held it tightly in her arms. Where's Xiao Xiao? Where's Xiao Xiao? An Yuyun panicked and looked everywhere for her daughter. Mommy, I'm here. There was movement from the rice cooker. Chapter 1702. The white snake wriggled in the rice cooker, and the rice cooker moved back and forth. An Yuyun was so scared that her face turned pale. Her daughter was being cooked in the pot. An Yuyun opened the rice cooker, and the white snake stuck its head out and shouted at An Yuyun pitifully. An Yuyun hugged the 2 snakes and looked at Ning Shu warily. She kept retreating barefoot into the living room. Ning Shu covered her nose. An Yuyun's body reeked of blood, mixed with the smell of rotten eggs. The smell of urine mixed with rotten eggs was a little disgusting. He had already told her to go to the hospital to get the foreign body out of her body. He really didn't know what An Yuyun wanted. You want to eat my children. You are indeed the same as those monsters. An Yuyun looked at Ning Shu with disappointment. Ning Shu put his hands behind his back and said casually, I am a monster that kills without blinking. Do you have a problem with that? And Yuyan was only afraid of the monsters that chased after her. But facing her, not only was she not afraid, but she also blamed her. People only dared to hurt people they were familiar with. Was the next sentence going to say that she had betrayed in Yuyan's trust? I always thought that you were different from other monsters. I also believed that you were different from other monsters, but I didn't expect you to want to eat my children. And Yuyan's face was very pale, and she was standing barefoot on the floor. The floor was cold. She really didn't cherish her body. Ning Shu felt that his body couldn't take it just thinking about it. Don't look like you've been deceived. I never asked you to believe me, and I never promised you anything, Ning Shu said as he spread his hands. Mommy, take my sister and leave first. I'll bring up the rear, the black snake said to Yuyan. His body gradually became bigger. From the thickness of a thumb to the thickness of a man's fist, he changed from a small snake to a half-sized python. His body became bigger, and his whole body was black. There was a metallic luster on his body, making him look ferocious and intimidating. The black snake propped up his body and spat out his scarlet forked tongue. The entire room seemed to be narrow. And Yuyan was shocked by her son's transformation. She didn't care and ran straight to the door. But just as he ran to the door, he was blocked by an invisible barrier. And Yuyan and the others were blocked by the water curtain. And Yuyan was knocked to the ground by the rebound force. She groaned and her face became even paler. Blood flowed out from her lower body. Blind Eagle, what did you do? The little white snake angrily shouted at Ning Shu. Are you sure you want to fight with us? My daddy is the Snake King. Have you thought about the consequences? Ning Shu said, I didn't do anything. It seems like you guys started it first. What do you mean we made the first move? You threw me into the pot and wanted to play with Big Brother, and you still say we made the first move? Little White Snake really wanted to bite Ning Shu. I'm looking for scientific evidence. I want to see if there are two snakes. I want to study your brother, Ning Shu said casually. He had a big weapon, good skills, strong strength, and good looks. It was a reasonable love story. Ning Shu's attitude angered the two little snakes. Scientific truth. Bullshit, he just wanted to eat them. Then what's with this barrier? Are you trying to trap us here? Little White Snake was very angry. He leaned forward and made an attacking posture. Little girl, you have to have a conscience. This water curtain helped you hide the demon aura. Otherwise, you would have been torn apart by the demons that swarmed over. Now you're saying that the barrier trapped you. The water curtain is innocent. Good or bad, it was up to them. The whole world should follow their wishes. Now they despised her barrier. So, from the beginning, you didn't plan to trap us here. You wanted to monopolize us. Little Black spat out his tongue and said to Ning Shu suspiciously. Ning Shu blinked. Should he take the blame or not? Let's be clear. You guys insisted on following me. Now it's my fault. I won't take the blame. Ning Shu waved his hand. No matter what, he couldn't let himself be in the wrong. You guys, on the other hand, ate my food, drank my water, lived in my house, and even attacked me mentally. Not only did you not compensate me, but you also put the blame on me. You guys took all the good things. You even had a good reputation. Now she had become someone with evil intentions. She imprisoned the Snake King's wife and prepared to eat the Snake King's child. That wasn't what you said in the beginning. Weren't you very grateful that I took you in? Yuan Liang, we want to go. Can you let us go? We want to find the child's father. And Yuyan said to Ning Shu with a pale face. Thank you for taking us in. When we find the child's father, we will come back to thank you. Ning Shu blinked. Why did these words sound like a threat? Can I believe this gratitude? Now these three people were like chicken ribs. He couldn't let them go, but he couldn't let them go either. Ning Shu wanted to slap his own claws. He shouldn't have saved them in the first place. The four of them confronted each other. Then, Ning Shu's expression changed. Someone had broken into her water curtain. Ning Shu looked at the balcony. A man entered the house from the balcony. This man was wearing casual clothes and had a head of neat hair. He was a very handsome man. The little white snake stuck out its tongue. It seemed to feel that the aura of the man in front of it was very familiar. It immediately swam in front of him. "Daddy, Daddy." The little black snake immediately shrank and swam toward the man. "Are you the woman who gave birth to my child?" The Snake King looked at An Yuyan condescendingly. An Yuyan was a little helpless. Facing this man who suddenly appeared, her feelings were particularly complicated. Especially when the other party's eyes looked at her unscrupulously. "Daddy, Mommy suffered a lot to protect us." The little white snake wrapped around the Snake King's hand. "It's been hard on you," the Snake King said with a rare gentleness. His long and narrow eyes looked at An Yuyan with some tenderness. He reached out to touch An Yuyan's head. An Yuyan dodged back. After giving birth, she kept sweating. She didn't wash her hair, and there was always a smell on her body. The Snake King's face sank. He pulled An Yuyan in front of him domineeringly. "Why are you dodging? You are the mother of my child." Ning Shu, who was ignored, was speechless. "Why did you come to my house to feed me dog food? I'll knock over your dog bowl." "Daddy, this blind eagle wants to chop me and my brother into snake stew. It's very bad." The little white snake complained to the Snake King. An Yuyan's lips squirmed twice, but she didn't say anything in the end. "What do you want to say?" The Snake King had been paying attention to An Yuyan. Seeing that she wanted to say something, he asked. An Yuyan looked at Ning Shu standing opposite her and said, "Actually, when I was being chased by demons, he took me in. We can let him go." Chapter 1703. An Yuyan pleaded for Ning Shu. After the Snake King came, her body and mind relaxed. She was fine now, so she could let this eagle go. "Mommy, do you know how bad this blind eagle is? Not only did he want to make us into snake soup, but he also wanted to look at brother. He said there were two snakes." The little white snake didn't know what it was, so it just repeated Ning Shu's words. An Yuyan's face turned red, and she lowered her head. "What else?" The Snake King stroked Little White on his wrist calmly. "Not only that, he also enslaved Mommy and made Mommy do housework when she was pregnant. She was so tired every day." The Snake King stared at Ning Shu unkindly. Ning Shu was fearless. "I'm enslaved. Come and bite me. Sister is telling the truth. We stayed in Mommy's stomach and didn't dare to come out. In the end, we grew so big that our eggshells broke. The eggshells are still in Mommy's body." The little black snake also joined in the criticism of Ning Shu. Ning Shu blinked. In the blink of an eye, she became a heinous person. Why didn't anyone say anything about saving her life? The Snake King frowned and looked at An Yuyan's stomach. "Do you feel uncomfortable?" "I'm fine." Ning Shu suggested, "What's the problem? Let the two children go back into her body and take out the eggshells." When Ning Shu said this, the atmosphere became cold and awkward. An Yuyan wanted to find a hole to hide in. What was this? Let the children go back in and take out the eggshells. The Snake King stared at Ning Shu, his pupils constricting. He gave off a very dangerous feeling. The Snake King stuck out his tongue. His forked tongue was very big. Ning Shu felt a little disgusted. Damn, it was too much to have sex with such a creature. The Snake King's body was probably a tool. Tongue, fingers, and even tail. There were two more. Just the thought of it made his blood boil and his taste buds run wild. The Snake King's lower body turned into a snake, and his upper body was human. "Daddy, you can do it." The little white snake cheered the Snake King on. "You must make the blind eagle kneel and beg for mercy." When Nguyen saw the Snake King with a human body and a snake tail, she was still a little uncomfortable. Her face turned pale. "Mommy, let's go to the side." The little black snake was afraid that the aftermath of the battle would affect Nguyen. Nguyen was just a fragile human being. Even the slightest injury would take her life. The Snake King appeared in front of Ning Shu in a flash. He propped himself up and looked down at Ning Shu. "You bullied my wife and child. Pay with your life." The Snake King's aura was very strong, especially when it was directed at Ning Shu. Ning Shu was under a lot of pressure. No wonder the client was instantly killed the moment they met. The difference in strength was too great. Ning Shu's hand transformed into a sharp eagle's claw. The eagle's claw flickered with a cold light. Ning Shu stood up and swung his claws at Snake King. The Snake King moved very quickly and dodged Ning Shu's attack. The two of them trembled together. The entire living room was in a mess. The Snake King's tail swept through the things in the room. The Snake King's tail was very powerful. Ning Shu only had to be swept once before he felt pain in his organs. If he were to be entangled, he would be strangled to death by the powerful force. Furthermore, he was very poisonous. Anything that came into contact with his venom would be corroded. The venom dripped on the ground and the ground sizzled. Ning Shu used a water curtain to cover himself to prevent the venom from splashing on his body. Even if it did, the water curtain could block it. What a powerful Snake King. In the age of chaos, there were very few who could have such powerful strength. The room was in a mess. Looking at the Snake King who looked like a pile of shit in the room, he used his eagle claw to adjust his glasses. The place was narrow and he couldn't fight freely. It seemed like this Snake King was very powerful. In the plot, it was said that he would be killed in one move. He thought that Yuan Liang was too weak, but the Snake King was too strong. To beat a snake, one had to first dig out its roots. Ning Shu moved his claws and looked at the entrenched Snake King. Damn it, where was its weak spot? The Snake King seemed to be a little impatient. He was not interested in this game of attacking and retreating. Long nails grew out of his fingers. Sharp teeth exposed his lips and venom seeped out of his teeth. With a whistle, Ning Shu rushed over. Ning Shu waved his claws. He was sweating and his face was pale. However, his clothes were torn by the Snake King's sharp nails. There were a few deep marks on his chest that were sizzling with white smoke. Ning Shu crashed into the wall and fell to the ground. The feeling of the venom corroding his flesh was very uncomfortable. Ning Shu wasn't in good shape. The Snake King wasn't in good shape either. The blood in his body was forcefully sucked out of his body. Drops of blood rushed out of his body and floated in the air. The whole room was filled with blood. The Snake King's body had lost more than one size. A demon's blood essence was its strength. The Snake King's blood had been sucked out of his body. Ning Shu touched the blood at the corner of his mouth. Although the flesh in his chest was rotting from the venom and smoking, Ning Shu felt that it was worth it when he saw the Snake King in pain. The blood that filled the air frightened Nguyen and the two snakes. "Daddy!" The two snakes shouted at the Snake King. Nguyen ran over and asked in panic, "How are you? Are you alright?" Ning Shu pointed his finger and the thumb-sized blood droplets began to gather. They slowly gathered into a football-sized blood droplet. The Snake King stared at the blood droplet and transformed into a gigantic snake head before swallowing the blood droplet. Ning Shu was speechless. She had nearly exhausted half her life to extract the Snake King's blood. The Snake King swallowed his blood, but it was as though he had swallowed a bomb. The blood droplet exploded in his body. The Snake King grunted and spat out a mouthful of blood mist. In his human form, the Snake King was covered in blood as he stared at Ning Shu with a pale face. You actually have some skill. The venom had corroded Ning Shu's ribs to the point where they could see. Ning Shu endured the pain and said with a smile, "Ouch, it hurts. It seems like I can only rely on your serum to detoxify the poison. There's no other way. I can only draw your blood." The venom in front of him couldn't be alleviated even if he washed it with water. Enough. Stop fighting. And Yu Yun roared. Ning Shu was expressionless as he pointed at his chest. I can even see the bones. You want me to stop fighting? Are you fucking blind? The Snake King had swallowed his blood essence, but the power in the blood essence had caused his body to suffer internal injuries. Neither of them had gained any benefits. There was also the feeling of his blood being stripped away. That was pain. The two snakes silently coiled around the Snake King's wrist. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have instigated his father to fight the blind eagle. The blind eagle was so powerful, but he usually looked like a coward. And Yu Yun's face was pale and a little pale. Her body couldn't take it anymore as she had been barefooted. Even her lips were a little pale. Chapter 1704. And Yu Yun didn't seem to care about her body at all. She stood between Ning Shu and Snake King, preventing the two from fighting again. Don't fight anymore. Thank you for saving me, and Yu Yun said to Ning Shu. She turned to Snake King and said, he did save me. Ning Shu's heart felt like it was about to explode. Who would want to listen to you? Her flesh and blood had already been corroded. After a while, her bones would also be corroded. Then, her internal organs. Was there any way to survive? Ning Shu didn't want to listen to Yu Yun's nonsense. Ning Shu had been washing his wounds with water. It was burning hot and painful, as if he had been splashed with sulfuric acid. Give me the antidote, or none of you can leave today, Ning Shu said coldly. Snake King smiled coldly. Antidote? Without the antidote, you will definitely die after being poisoned by me. Ning Shu wasn't afraid of such a threat. He adjusted his glasses. If I die, so be it. Even if I die, I will drag your family of 4 down with me, Ning Shu said indifferently. Meeting you is really my bad luck of 8 lifetimes. I have already set up a barrier around this area. If you want to leave, it will take time to break it. Let's see who dies first. Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the ground, dripping blood as he looked at his unrecognizable chest. Fortunately, it was a man. If it was a woman, her chest would be gone. And Yu Yun saw Ning Shu's tough attitude and couldn't help but look at Snake King. Snake King's expression was a little solemn. He was no longer as relaxed as before. Snake King had some confidence in his strength. After all, he could break into the investigation bureau alone and even steal something. However, he didn't expect to fall in the hands of this ordinary-looking eagle. Although this eagle was poisoned by him and would soon turn into a pool of green water, it still made Snake King's heart feel stifled. Moreover, the people from the investigation bureau were coming. Now was not the time to fight with this eagle. Snake King turned into a snake and rolled Yu Yun up. He was ready to leave with his wife and child. Leaving just like that? Wishful thinking. Ning Shu's hand turned into a claw and heavily slashed the Snake King's body. His body was cut open and blood splashed out. The Snake King hissed twice before it was stopped by the water barrier again. The Snake King was annoyed. Why was this person pestering him like a dogskin plaster? He had more important things to do. Ning Shu's heart was in pain. He used his claws to scratch the Snake King's tail. Every time he scratched it, blood would spurt out. And Yu Yun looked at this scene with a pale face and looked at Ning Shu in horror. This person was so scary. The Snake King crashed into the barrier several times, but failed to break it. Instead, it was injured by Ning Shu. The Snake King swept its tail and slapped Ning Shu with great force. Ning Shu hurriedly dodged, and the snake tail smashed into the floor. The entire building shook twice, and cracks appeared on the floor. The battle scene was very intense. Blood splattered everywhere, and the entire living room was covered in blood. The Snake King had to fight with Ning Shu while breaking the barrier. Ning Shu could see that the Snake King was a little anxious and wanted to leave. Ning Shu tapped the water screen with her finger, and the water screen became thicker. At worst, they would die together. Damn it, her heart was in pain. Her ribs were about to turn into crispy pork ribs. The two little snakes couldn't participate in a battle of this level. As for Nguyen, she was already scared silly by this kind of bloody battle. The Snake King turned back into a human again. His body was covered in blood. He stared at Ning Shu with his long and narrow eyes. His vertical pupils opened and contracted, looking extremely dangerous. No one spoke, and the atmosphere was very solemn. Ning Shu's heart was even more bloody. The poison was still seeping into Ning Shu's body. Ning Shu couldn't do anything even if he ate the antidote. Ning Shu made up his mind and took a knife to cut off the rotten flesh in front of him to prevent the poison from seeping into his internal organs. And Nguyen watched Ning Shu cut his own flesh with a knife. Black blood flowed out and dripped on the ground. It looked very horrifying. And Nguyen's eyelids rolled and she fainted. Her body was weak, and she was barefoot. She had watched the fierce battle for so long, and now she saw Ning Shu cutting his own flesh. She was so excited that she fainted. The Snake King hugged Nguyen and looked at Ning Shu. "Are you really not going to let us go today?" Ning Shu said, "I said that as long as you give me the antidote, I will let you go. Otherwise, I don't want to leave today." Anyway, today's grudge was set. Snakes were evil and cunning. They were not broad-minded people. Ning Shu felt that the Snake King wouldn't let him go. Moreover, the Snake King was in a hurry to leave. Although he didn't know why, he wanted to delay it for as long as possible. Cutting his flesh was really painful. Ning Shu was in so much pain that he cried out in pain. The room was filled with Ning Shu's elegant howls. The white snake wanted to mock Ning Shu, but she couldn't open her mouth. No matter how stupid she was, she should know that this blind eagle was not weak. Otherwise, they wouldn't be trapped here and unable to leave. The white snake bared her teeth. "If you are a master, just say it. You usually act like a weakling." The Snake King stared at Ning Shu. If he could do it to himself, who couldn't he do it to? This kind of person was cruel and merciless. The Snake King narrowed her long eyes and looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked at his chest. Finally, there was fresh blood flowing out. She really peeled off a layer of skin. No, she peeled off several layers of skin. It was really fucking painful. Ning Shu's face was pale. He leaned against the wall and felt that he didn't have long to live. Ning Shu adjusted his glasses. Seeing the Snake King staring at him, he smiled at him. "Why are you looking at me like that? Anyway, I don't need the antidote. Let's just wait until the people who are looking for you come." The Snake King hugged Nguyen. Two small snakes, one black and one white, were coiled around each of her shoulders. They were sticking out their tongues. "I admit that someone is chasing me. But when the person comes, you won't have a good time," the Snake King suddenly said. Ning Shu's eyes turned. "It's the people from the Investigation Bureau. Even if it's the Investigation Bureau, I didn't do anything evil. The Investigation Bureau can't do anything to me." "You're wrong. The Investigation Bureau's role is to kill powerful monsters. You admit that you are not weak. Soon, you will be included in the Investigation Bureau's list of must-kill monsters. The Snake King didn't look like he was lying. Ning Shu said calmly, so what? It's better for us to fight to the death and let the Investigation Bureau take advantage of us. Do you know how much humans, especially those who stand at the top of power, want to live forever? Monsters like us are the humans' test subjects. They want to find out the secret of how we can live for hundreds of years, the Snake King Ning Shu said. This was a little interesting. There must be a purpose for the Investigation Bureau, a secret organization. Ning Shu was expressionless. So, it's meaningless for us to fight to the death. Chapter 1705. Ning Shu truly experienced the feeling of having the poison removed from his bones. Leaning against the wall, he looked half dead. However, Snake King did not dare to be careless, especially since the enchantment could not be broken at all. He still had to rely on this person. Even though he looked like he was about to die, it might just be an act to confuse others. Monsters were very cunning animals, especially those that had lived for hundreds of years. Their wisdom could be honed with time. Therefore, Snake King took the initiative to talk about the investigation department that was tracking him. Ning Shu was skeptical about the investigation department. In this world where humans and monsters coexisted, the existence of the investigation department was definitely not so open. Otherwise, it would not have been secretly established. The investigation department did not have much of a presence in the eyes of humans. Many people did not even know that there was such an office. However, among the monsters, it was like thunder. And Yuyun was in Snake King's arms. She was unconscious and her face was a little pale. Snake King was a little anxious. If they did not leave, the investigation department would arrive. We are monsters after all. We fought to the death. Once the investigation department arrived, the two of us would be wiped out by them. Snake King frowned and said. Ning Shu's face was pale and he smiled indifferently. I'm alone. It's my gain to lose your family of 4. Snake King's eyebrows were knitted together. Do you really want to die with me? What good will it do you? You'll be locked up in the investigation department. It's better to die. Ning Shu stood up with the help of the wall. Who doesn't love their lives? I'm just unhappy. If I were weaker, I'm afraid I would have been killed by you. Now that I can trap you, you're talking terms with me. Snake King, you're really embarrassed. Ignoring the fact that he had saved her life, she attacked without distinguishing right from wrong. Fine, you're awesome, okay. However, there's always a higher mountain. If this person was killed, it would be fine. However, if he met a strong one, he would be kicking an iron plate. Killing someone in one move. That was awesome. The strong were respected and the weak were eliminated. According to this logic, it would be fine even if she wanted the lives of An Yuyun and the 2 little snakes. Who asked them to be weak? Yuan Liang deserved to die. However, Yuan Liang seemed to feel that he was wronged. In the end, it was a matter of strength. Wasn't the Snake King trying to talk terms with her? There must be something on Snake King that the FBI wanted. Ning Shu released his spiritual force and scanned the Snake King's body for something. The Snake King's vertical pupils stared intently at Ning Shu. He felt as if something had swept past him. Ning Shu didn't find anything special on Snake King's body. Could he have guessed wrongly? Ning Shu and Snake King faced each other. Ning Shu absent-mindedly mobilized the tiny bit of spiritual energy in his dantian to heal himself. The wound hurt too much. The Snake King was really lame. He couldn't even cure his own poison. Anyway, he was not allowed to leave just like that. He had crippled her and turned her home into this state. It was as if he had just left. Nothing good will come out of saving your wife and child. The Snake King stared at Ning Shu maliciously. His lower body and upper body transformed into a snake and floated in the air, looking at Ning Shu. I told you nicely. If you don't listen, then don't blame me for being impolite. The Snake King opened his mouth and spat out a round bead. This bead looked like a large pearl, but it also looked like it was made of polished jade. As soon as this bead came out, the entire space in the room became a little distorted. The water curtain barrier that Ning Shu had set up also became turbulent. Ning Shu was shocked. What was this thing? It was so powerful. The bead kept spinning in the air. It looked like the barrier was about to break. Finally, with a bang, the water curtain turned into droplets of water and dripped down like rain. Her barrier was broken. Ning Shu pointed his finger. The water that fell to the ground turned into raindrops again and flew up to the roof. Like a tape, they gathered together and set up the water curtain barrier again. There was nothing in this world that didn't have much except water. It could be recycled. You broke the barrier, so I set it up again. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to master the law of water. Thank you for your whole family. The Snake King's face was a little ugly. Finally, he couldn't help but wonder, I say, is there something wrong with your brain? I tried so hard to persuade you, but it was all in vain. The Snake King was a little surprised that Ning Shu could set up a barrier with just a raise of his hand. Such a monster was not simple in the demon realm. The Snake King regretted making a move so early. Maybe it was a big monster who was tired of staying in the demon realm and came to live in the human world. Ning Shu said indifferently, people should strive to live a good life. You came to my house to fight and kill. You didn't even have a chance to argue. Where am I supposed to put my face? I don't have any objections if you want to show off, but you can't just kill me like this. The most annoying thing was this kind of pretentious person, especially one who used other people's lives to show off. If he really did something wrong and really hurt someone, it would be fine. But he had to kill someone for no reason. So awesome. Go fuck yourself. The bead vibrated slightly, and the space where the bead was slightly distorted. Ning Shu's water curtain barrier was broken by the bead again, and the rain fell. Ning Shu smiled slightly and pointed his finger. The water droplets that fell to the ground gathered again, forming a water curtain. Well, it seemed that he was getting more and more skilled. The Snake King's face was very ugly. He stared at Ning Shu with his vertical pupils and threatened, do you really want to go against me? Don't forget that I am the Snake King. All the snakes in the world listen to my orders. Ning Shu's fingers turned into claws, and he said with a smile, I am an expert at catching snakes. No matter what, I am still an eagle. The Snake King couldn't help but curse for being retarded. It was really difficult to deal with such a stubborn person, especially one who was not weak. He was unmoved by force or persuasion. Ning Shu stared at the slightly trembling bead. What was this? Maybe it was a treasure. Ning Shu stretched out her hand, wanting to take the bead away. Especially since the bead was emitting a strong demonic aura. The Snake King saw that Ning Shu was looking at the demonic beast, and he immediately opened his mouth and swallowed the demonic beast. Ning Shu curled his lips. Snake King. His table manners were really ugly. Without the demonic beast's help, it was impossible for the Snake King to break the barrier. Even if he tried his best to break the barrier, it would be repaired. It was maddening. Ning Shu moved his eagle claws. Let me tear open your body and take out the bead to see what it is. The Snake King waved his tail, and Ning Shu attacked. Ning Shu pointed his finger, and a water curtain wrapped around the Snake King. The Snake King laughed sinisterly. Blind eagle, don't think that I am really afraid of you. With that, a strong demonic aura exploded from the Snake King's body. His eyes were scarlet, and the demonic wind around him was like a hurricane. As for Ning Shu's water screen, it was like a bubble that was popped. Ning Shu narrowed his eyes. The Snake King still had a backup plan. Chapter 1706. Could it be that the Snake King had no way to control this powerful demonic aura? If this demonic aura continued to spread, the house would probably be destroyed by the demonic aura hurricane. The Snake King's eyes were scarlet, and his face was covered with a layer of scales. He spat out his scarlet forked tongue. The Snake King stared at Ning Shu and growled coldly, "You forced me to do this." Ning Shu felt that the water curtain was shaking. It was obvious that the enchantment was about to break. Damn, this was the power of the heavens chosen, getting stronger and stronger. Could it be because of the bead? Ning Shu's face was cold. The water pipe in the kitchen burst, and the tap water splashed out. Ning Shu pointed his finger, and the water surged into the enchantment on the roof, increasing the strength and thickness of the enchantment. In just a short while, the Snake King's face was covered with snake scales, revealing a pair of vertical pupils. Ning Shu couldn't bear to look at it. His trypophobia was acting up. "Do you really want to die with me? Why? Isn't it just a misunderstanding? Do you have to do this?" The Snake King spat out his scarlet tongue and hissed in a low voice. Ning Shu pointed at his chest with his eagle claw. It was a bloody mess. "This is a misunderstanding. If it wasn't for my strength, I would have been killed by you. I don't even have my life now, and you're telling me it's a misunderstanding. And your 2 children, they're not good seeds either. Sooner or later, they'll be cooked into snake soup. They're just pretentious foxes. If you want to be pretentious, you have to have the strength to be pretentious. If you have the strength to be pretentious, that's a high realm that mortals can't understand. But what ability do these 2 little snakes have?" She didn't know why they could be so arrogant in front of her and her client, full of a sense of superiority. Could it be that the words "spare tire" were written on their faces? "I originally wanted to spare your life, but now that you don't know what's good for you, you can go to hell." The Snake King's eyes turned red, and his pupils couldn't be seen. Ning Shu felt that the Snake King was very anxious and wanted to leave. That was why he was so eager to kick him away. Perhaps this was not the power of the Snake King, but the effect of the pearl that was emitting a powerful demonic aura. The Snake King was going all out. Ning Shu did not dare be careless. He transformed into an eagle and used his sharp talons to fight the Snake King. The surrounding glass shattered into pieces, and even the door was smashed into smithereens. The eagle that Ning Shu had transformed into had no feathers on its chest. It had become a hairless eagle. The Snake King also had restrictions, which were in Yuyun and the 2 children. The 2 small snakes were nestled in the Snake King's arms. Snake King still had to carry the unconscious An Yuyun with one hand. An Yuyun's hair was messed up by the demonic aura, and her face turned blue. Moreover, the lochia that was similar to menstruation had wet his pants. In addition to the stench of snakes and blood, there was also a foul stench coming from An Yuyun's body. The smell of rotten eggs. In the plot, An Yuyun gave birth to 2 complete snake eggs. It was a normal delivery. That was because Yuan Liang was good to her. An Yuyun gave birth without any worries. However, Ning Shu's attitude towards An Yuyun was unclear. In addition, the 2 children did not have a good impression of Ning Shu. They felt that Ning Shu was going to eat them. They had been in the stomach and refused to come out. Now, the eggshell was in the body, inflamed and smelly. Ning Shu gritted his teeth. Every time he grabbed the Snake King, it was like grabbing a soldering iron. Not only was it hard, but it was also very hot. Damn, the Snake King was so powerful. It was going to ascend to heaven. The Snake King was not having a good time either. The demonic aura was rampaging in his body. He had no way to control the huge demonic aura. He had to take care of several demonic auras, control the rampaging power in his body, and protect his children and women. Unfortunately, there was a brainless eagle chasing after him. If he was not forced into a corner, he would not have used the demonic aura. Moreover, such a strong demonic aura quickly attracted the people from the investigation bureau. Damn, retard. The Snake King felt that there was something wrong with the eagle's brain. What was the point of fighting like this? It was just a small misunderstanding. If it messed up his plans, he would pull out the eagle's feathers one by one. He would pull out his sharp claws one by one. The Snake King went berserk and attacked Ning Shu even more viciously. Furthermore, more and more small snakes began to gather around. They were summoned by the Snake King. There were all kinds of snakes of different sizes and colors. They all crawled towards Ning Shu's building. Some of the snakes were even entwined together as though they were mating. They rolled their bodies, revealing their white bellies. Many snakes were entwined together. Fortunately, it was night. If it was daytime, he would have been scared to death. The densely packed snakes were sticking out their tongues as they entwined together. Just the thought of it gave him goosebumps. Some climbed up the vines on the walls or the sewer tanks. They stuck out their tongues and swam towards Ning Shu. They were densely packed. Aren't you good at catching snakes? You can catch them now, the Snake King said with a sneer. Ning Shu was speechless. He was a little scared. The main reason was that snakes were very uncomfortable. When there were so many of them, Ning Shu's hair stood on end uncontrollably. It was not that he couldn't defeat them, but the place was cold. The unconscious and Yuyun woke up. The first thing she saw was the Snake King whose face was covered in snake scales. His eyes were red and his forked scarlet tongue was sticking out from time to time. Being held in the arms of such a monster, and Yuyun was so scared that she screamed. "It's me," the Snake King said. "My demonic power was out of control." And Yuyun was still in shock. When she saw the house full of small snakes, she was so scared that she almost screamed. And Yuyun shivered. Her face was pale and blue. She looked like a magnolia flower that had been ravaged by a storm. And Yuyun hugged the Snake King's neck. She was at a loss and looked pitiful. The demonic wind blew her hair into a mess, hitting her and the Snake King's face from time to time. What a naughty hair. "Open the barrier and I'll let these snakes leave," the Snake King said to Ning Shu. As time passed, more and more snakes crawled in. The ground was covered with a thick layer of snakes. The floor could no longer be seen. "You are on top of me and I am wrapped around you." The house was filled with the hissing sounds of snakes. Ning Shu hammered his head. He was so focused on strengthening the water curtain on the roof that he didn't notice the cracks in the water curtain under his feet. Looking at the house full of snakes, Ning Shu frowned. He would be exhausted if he had to catch them one by one. Chapter 1707. What was the point of calling over these snakes without intelligence? It was pure and disgusting. Ning Shu pointed her finger and water splashed out from the kitchen pipe. It gathered in front of Ning Shu like a water dragon. Ning Shu stood in the air and pointed at the water droplets in front of her. The water droplets turned into countless small water droplets. Then, these water droplets turned into countless sharp and tiny ice needles. The ice needles flew towards the snakes in the room. The ice needles pierced into the snakes' bodies and nailed them to the floor. Ning Shu drew out the water in the kitchen and drowned the snakes. Then, she drew out the temperature and made the water colder and colder. Finally, it condensed into ice. The snakes were frozen motionless. Snakes were hibernating animals. At such a low temperature, the snakes would reduce their physiological needs. At the same time, Ning Shu repaired the water curtain in the room and turned the entire water curtain into an enclosed space. This way, the snakes outside could not enter. The Snake King's 2 children could not withstand such a low temperature. They yawned and shouted at the Snake King, Daddy, it's so cold. And Yuyin's teeth were chattering from the cold. Her upper teeth touched her lower teeth and her lips were purple from the cold. The Snake King hurriedly injected some demonic power into Yuyin's body to resist the cold. The cold environment was very disadvantageous for snakes. The Snake King looked at Ning Shu. What kind of method is this? Ning Shu was very tired. If she could not use her principles, she would not use the power of the law. If she could not use the law, she would not use the law. Furthermore, when the client came back, she could not use the law. However, the Snake King's power was getting stronger and stronger. She could not withstand it. He didn't know what that bead was, but the client had never seen it before. Ning Shu felt that it was not the Snake King. The Snake King did not control the bead's power. If she let the Snake King go this time, it would be more difficult to deal with the Snake King when he controlled the bead's power. Now that the hatred had been formed, she had angered the Snake King. When the Snake King became stronger, he would definitely come back to kill her. Therefore, Ning Shu decided to delay Snake King no matter what until the people from the Investigation Bureau arrived. It was very likely that the bead did not belong to the Snake King at all. The reason why Snake King was being hunted down was probably because he had stolen it from the Bureau of Investigation. This was the plot that Ning Shu had concluded after traversing countless planes. It was very likely that the Snake King wanted to steal something, but he was afraid that he would not be able to come back, so he decided to find someone to reproduce his offspring. No matter what, he had to leave a seed. Then, he met Yuyin. Therefore, the Snake King had come looking for him. He had taken his wife and child away and killed the person who had entrusted him. But now, because it was Ning Shu, he was stuck here. Yes, there's nothing wrong with that. Therefore, Ning Shu had to stall for time until the people chasing after Snake King arrived. Was there really nothing wrong with the people from the Investigation Bureau? Why weren't they here yet? Ning Shu carefully stood on the thin ice. The ground was a little slippery, so he couldn't fall. Ning Shu leaned against the wall and confronted Snake King. Snake King silently looked at Ning Shu, who was slipping under his feet. What do I have to do to make you compromise? Ning Shu felt helpless against Snake King, and Snake King felt the same way about Ning Shu. He felt that no matter what he did, the other party could take it. Fuck, stupid. Snake King seriously suspected that this eagle had lived with humans for too long and his brain had degenerated. Otherwise, he couldn't figure out why he was so stubborn. Other than this explanation, Snake King really couldn't find any other reason to explain this guy's stupid behavior. Since it was a misunderstanding, couldn't he just explain it? Ning Shu said with a smile, I'm quite interested in the bead in your body. Why don't you spit it out and we can study it together? Snake King's face darkened. He didn't say anything and didn't give in. Ning Shu didn't care. She wasn't in a hurry to run anyway. Snake King's time was running out, and he was anxious. Snake King laughed coldly. When the people from the Investigation Bureau arrive, you won't be able to get away with it. A big monster like you is also a monster that the Investigation Bureau focuses on monitoring. You might even be sent to the research table if you can escape from the Investigation Bureau. Ning Shu asked, is the Investigation Bureau a monster slaughterhouse? Do humans have to eat monster meat? Snake King looked at Ning Shu. You're right. Some monsters that commit crimes are directly slaughtered and eaten. Therefore, monsters that are targeted by the Investigation Bureau can't escape death. Ning Shu's eyes turned, and he smacked his lips. He calmly said, oh. Ning Shu wiped his face in front of him. A block of ice appeared in front of him. It was square and covered his head and face. This way, they won't be able to see who I am. Snake King almost vomited blood. Fuck, stupid. What exactly do you want? What do you want? Snake King asked Ning Shu with a sullen face. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. At this time, he had to discuss and negotiate with someone. Wasn't he very arrogant and wanted to kill someone in an instant? This was strength. Only with strength would one have the right to speak. Only then would one have the opportunity to speak. Ning Shu poked 2 holes in the ice with his fingers and looked at Snake King through the small holes. Actually, I don't have any requests. I just want you to apologize to me. Of course, I also want to spank your 2 children. 2 big slaps on their faces will do too. I'm a relatively kind person. If it were other monsters, they would have eaten these 2 long ago. They're very annoying all day long. Snake King's pupils shrank. The 2 little snakes in Snake King's arms pitifully called out for their daddy. Don't go too far. Snake King said in a low voice. His eyes were scarlet. If you really want to die together, then let's see who's better and who's lucky enough to survive in the end. I broke into the investigation bureau alone and could still escape unscathed. Do you really think that's all I have? I just don't want to make things worse. Snake King's attitude was within Ning Shu's expectations. If Snake King really compromised, then it wouldn't be cool and arrogant. And usually, it could even kill a villain like her. Ning Shu replied with an expressionless "oh." Snake King was a little agitated by Ning Shu's indifferent attitude. He opened his mouth and spat out a thick poisonous fog. If Ning Shu wanted to avoid the poisonous fog, he could only open the barrier and run out. This poisonous fog was very powerful. Anything that came into contact with the poison would be corroded. Damn, it's still coming. Ning Shu felt his heart hurt even more. If the poisonous fog touched his body, it would be useless even if he cut off all the flesh in his body. After fighting with Snake King for so long, Ning Shu had never really gained the upper hand. Ning Shu pointed his finger and a water wall appeared in front of him to protect him. However, when the poisonous fog came into contact with the water wall, it began to slowly corrode the water wall. Ning Shu quickly thickened the water wall to prevent the poisonous fog from coming into contact with him. Chapter 1708. Ning Shu pointed at an Yuyun in Snake King's arms and said loudly, "Oh my god, your woman seems to have been poisoned." An Yuyun was just a fragile human being. How could she withstand Snake King's poison? Her face was colorful and swollen. Snake King was shocked. He had no choice but to open his mouth wide and suck back the poisonous fog. He could even suck it back. This skill was really useless. The temporary crisis was over. Ning Shu breathed a sigh of relief. He still didn't dare to remove the water wall. Snake King was a very insidious person. Through the water wall, Ning Shu saw Snake King feed an Yuyun a medicine. It should be the antidote. Not long after she ate it, the color on an Yuyun's face faded a little. He said there was an antidote, but he said there was no antidote. Ning Shu just wanted to roll his eyes. He lowered his head and looked at his chest. It was bloody. First, it was eroded by the poison. Then, Ning Shu cut his own flesh. No compromise. No compromise. No matter what, he had to stop Snake King. An Yuyun was so uncomfortable that she cried. She had inhaled the poisonous fog. She was still in confinement, and the temperature in the room was very low. An Yuyun couldn't bear it. She had hurt the roots of her body. Especially since she had just given birth and the eggshell was still in her body. Snake King frowned. He hugged an Yuyun and said, "Don't cry. It's okay." In Snake King's heart, this woman was helping him carry on his children. It could only be said that she was a little special in his heart. He still needed some time to fall in love with her. After all, this was only the second time they had met. So when he spat out the poisonous fog, he didn't consider an Yuyun. Snake King took a deep breath and looked at Ning Shu on the other side of the water wall. He wanted to say something, but he couldn't open his mouth. The monster in front of him was unmoved by force or persuasion. Ning Shu's ears twitched. He said with a smile, "It seems that someone is here. They should be from the Investigation Bureau." Snake King's eyes turned scarlet. He stared at Ning Shu. "You have guts." "Of course I have guts." Soon, several people stood at the door. There were people in Taoist costumes and men in military uniforms. There were men and women. There were also several monsters. Could it be that there were demons working for the Investigation Bureau? Several people were blocked outside by Ning Shu's enchantment. Snake King looked at Ning Shu maliciously. "Do you think the FBI will let you go?" Ning Shu pointed his finger, and a hole appeared in the water curtain at the entrance. The people outside were planning to use all kinds of martial arts to break the enchantment. But he didn't expect the barrier to open first. A capable woman in a leather jacket and pants entered the house first. The leather pants stretched her long legs straight and slender. It was indescribably sexy and seductive. Especially as she walked, the mysterious triangular region became even more alluring. Looking at the messy room, his gaze paused on Snake King and he said, "Snake King." When Snake King saw this woman, his expression did not look very good. The woman saw an Yuyun in Snake King's arms. "Are you holding a human hostage? That's against the rules of the Investigation Bureau. You have to come back with us." Snake King sneered, hugged an Yuyun, and kissed her. They were entangled. Then, he released an Yuyun's lips and said to the woman, "Have you ever seen someone treat a hostage like this?" An Yuyun's pale face flushed red when Snake King suddenly kissed her. Her eyes were watery and covered with a layer of mist. She looked lost and helpless, which made her look a little cute. The woman turned around and looked at Ning Shu with a frosty expression. Ning Shu's head was covered by a cube of ice. She couldn't see what Ning Shu looked like. "What kind of monster are you?" The woman scanned the situation in the room and the frozen snake. There was a slight flicker in her eyes. Ning Shu said in a low voice, "I'm just a nobody." "What's your name?" The woman said as she took out her phone. She seemed to want to check Ning Shu's information. "Why are you asking for my name?" Ning Shu asked. "To be able to trap Snake King, who escaped from the Investigation Bureau, your strength is not to be underestimated. We humans have to have records of monsters like you. Tell me, what's your name and what kind of monster are you?" Before Ning Shu could speak, the white snake poked its head out of Snake King's arms and said loudly, "His name is Yuan Liang. His true form is a blind eagle." "Yuan Liang, eagle." The woman tapped on the phone screen. Ning Shu turned his head to look at the white snake. It immediately shrank into Snake King's clothes. "Show your face." "We want to take a photo," the woman said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu frowned tightly and said, "My face has been corroded by the poisonous fog. You can't take a photo of me even if you want to." Snake King sneered and said, "I told you before. As long as the Investigation Bureau sees a powerful monster, they will think of a way to send it to the operating table or the dining table." "Vile creature, hand over what you stole," the old Taoist shouted at Snake King. Snake King stuck out its scarlet tongue and said sinisterly, "Once it's in my hands, it's mine." The old Taoist led a few tall and strong demons to surround the Snake King. Snake King coldly looked at the demons. "As a demon, you are actually lowly to be a human's lackey. If I become the Demon King that commands thousands of demons, the first demons I will kill will be demons like you." The demons remained silent. The old Taoist was quite capable. With a flick of his horsetail whisk, he formed a seal with his fingers and cooperated with the demons to fight Snake King. Ning Shu watched silently from the side. There was also a woman in a leather jacket standing beside her, sizing her up. "You didn't do anything illegal, right?" the woman asked Ning Shu coldly. Ning Shu said, I didn't do anything against the law. I don't believe that you can't find out my information. I'm just an ordinary monster. The woman curled her lips. I'm the director of the Investigation Bureau. Ning Shu acknowledged, hello, director. The woman walked towards Ning Shu and leaned close to Ning Shu's ear. We might be the same kind. Ning Shu blinked. You're a demon too. The woman curled her lips into a smile. She actually had a hint of beauty. Playing dumb. Ning Shu did not say anything. If this woman was really a mission enforcer, but he did not know whether she was a friend or foe, Ning Shu did not respond. He would not expose his identity either. If it was in the past, Ning Shu might have been happy to meet a colleague in the same world. But now, she was the embodiment of the law. She went from an unknown mission enforcer that no one paid attention to the embodiment of the law of water. This kind of attention also had a hint of malice. Ning Shu did not know whether this woman was a friend or foe, so he had to be careful. Even if she saw something from the traces of battle in the house, Ning Shu would not admit it before he knew if she was a friend or foe. Ning Shu was indifferent. The woman was not angry either. She stood side by side with Ning Shu and watched the battle. It seemed like she did not intend to interfere. Chapter 1709. Ning Shu was more vigilant than happy about the mission enforcer who had suddenly appeared. Even though her current target was Snake King, she seemed to be on the same side. However, Ning Shu did not have a good feeling about this woman. Her attitude was very arrogant as she looked down at Ning Shu. Ning Shu thought to himself that she must be a powerful mission enforcer. Snake King seemed a little tired under the attacks of the few demons and the old Taoist priest. Coupled with the 3 burdens, Snake King's situation was a little bad. However, if Snake King was so easy to deal with, he would not be the main character. Anyone who was poisoned by him would be corroded by the poison. Snake King had no choice but to borrow the power of the demon. A strong demon aura hurricane rose from his body, preventing people from approaching him. However, Snake King was a little overwhelmed by the demon's power. Do you know what Snake King stole from the investigation department? Asked the female director, Ning Shu. Ning Shu shook his head. I'm not a god. How would I know? The person who entrusted him died early. He was killed by Snake King as soon as he met him. Who knew how Snake King and An Yuyun showed off their love and tortured the single dogs? It's that demon. The female director glanced at Ning Shu, seemingly surprised that Ning Shu was so stupid. Demons are the symbol of the Demon King. The Demon King commands all the demons in the demon world. The demons are so chaotic now and have even integrated into the human world. There seems to be signs of harmony with humans because the demons do not have a demon king. They are divided and fight for themselves. No one is willing to submit to anyone. If a demon king is born, the situation will be different. If Snake King controls the demon and uses it for himself, he will be the new demon king. He will have the power and authority to command all the demons. He will slaughter humans wantonly. The current peaceful situation will be broken. Humans will also know of the existence of demons. People will panic and the entire world will be in chaos. The last demon king was killed by humans after gathering a lot of power and sacrificing a lot. They took the demon away, but the demon was stolen by Snake King. Oh. Ning Shu acted as if he suddenly understood. So we have to get the demon back today no matter what. Yes. The female director nodded. Ning Shu coughed and pointed at An Yuyun, who was in the Demon King's arms. Isn't there another person in the human battlefront? An Yuyun is a kind person. She will definitely persuade the Snake King not to slaughter the humans. The female director was stunned for a moment and couldn't help but roll her eyes. That's her. When she arrived at the demon realm, the Snake King gave her a palace to live in and she enjoyed the supreme favor. She fought with a group of female monsters and enjoyed the favor of the monsters. She doesn't know anything about the human world. Dogs are more reliable than her. Ning Shu was speechless. Thinking about it, An Yuyun was a person who didn't have her own opinions. As long as he had a little bit of happiness, he didn't need to know about the storm outside. Moreover, her man could shelter her from any storm. Contentment brings happiness. My happiness is just a little bit of happiness, Ning Shu said casually. The female director said coldly, therefore, placing the hope of humanity on this woman is simply courting death. The female director looked at Ning Shu. Don't tell me you don't know about the demon realm. If the Snake King really brings this woman to the demon realm, then he will really leave humanity and can't be considered a human. Ning Shu was indifferent. He knew a little about the demon realm. It was actually an alternate dimension. In this plane, a dimension was opened. This space seemed to be a space created by the gathering of some powerful demons. When the living space of the monsters was compressed, the demon realm could be said to be the last place for monsters. There were some powerful demons living there. Ning Shu stared at the Snake King whose face was covered in snake scales. It seemed that the Snake King was still an ambitious monster. He was unwilling to be the Snake King. Not only did he want to rule over the snakes, but he also wanted to rule over the demons. Perhaps the Snake King in the plot would succeed. After all, the person who entrusted the mission in the plot couldn't even last a round with the Snake King. The Snake King brought along his wife and child. The Snake King is a lawless, wild monster that is difficult to tame. If he becomes the Demon King, the world will fall into great turmoil, the female director said. Ning Shu thought for a moment and asked, do you think the Snake King will kill humans wantonly? That's for sure. Ning Shu said indifferently, actually, killing a little is nothing. After all, humans are multiplying too quickly. There are too many of them. The plane can't take countless resources. There's a reason why a person like the Snake King can become the protagonist. After a massacre, the number of humans would definitely decrease sharply. This was from the perspective of the plane's self-healing. Why were the monsters forced to live with humans and be forced to live like humans? Because there was no room for survival. Humans had occupied too many resources and places. But Ning Shu didn't want these people to be killed by him. The development of the plane had its own rules. The female director glanced at Ning Shu. That's true, but innocent humans shouldn't be involved in such a battle. Ning Shu said indifferently, then let the people who benefit, such as the army, enjoy the supreme right to fight. Once the war starts, it will be an uncontrollable turmoil, the female director said. Ning Shu just chuckled and didn't say anything. Every plane had its own rules of self-development. The change of dynasties was also the process of the plane's self-healing. The fall of a dynasty, from the beginning of a prosperous era to the end of a muddle-headed era, all kinds of chaos, injustice in the world, and hunger for thousands of miles, produced resentment. At this time, a new dynasty would be born in the blood, eliminating the resentment of the past, and the cycle would continue. Ning Shu felt that such a war was the process of the plane's self-healing. Sacrifice a portion to save a portion. As for whether they could survive, it was up to fate. The female director narrowed her eyes slightly and looked at Ning Shu. You think you're a monster just because you're doing a mission for a monster? What are you talking about? I've done everything. I'm just stating facts. Ning Shu spread his hands. Putting aside this love story, he kept adding halos to the Snake King, from the Snake King to the King of Monsters. Wasn't he giving the Snake King strength and guiding his own fate? For in Yuyun, she had conquered a man who conquered the world. Moreover, this man only loved her and gave her unparalleled love. This was a woman's achievement. A smart woman smiled sweetly and let the man fight for the woman. She drove and controlled the man. If there was no Snake King, someone else would take on such a mission. Ning Shu rolled his eyes and thought. It seemed that many people and monsters would be sacrificed in the future. The client's wish was to survive and teach the Snake King a lesson. Chapter 17:10. His wish had basically been fulfilled. However, if Snake King was not dealt with, the client's life would never be guaranteed. As for the demon, Ning Shu did not want to care about it. However, he could not let it fall into the hands of Snake King. If the demon fell into the hands of any small demon, it could give birth to a powerful demon that would shoulder the fate of the demon. Speaking of which, the demon was like a tool to achieve self-healing in the plane. The people who were born in this plane were more like chess pieces. Fate was really a very difficult thing to figure out. The law of fate was even more mysterious. Fate. The female director Ning Shu said, "Do you want to work in the investigation bureau?" Many demons work in the investigation bureau. Ning Shu looked at the fighting demons, thought for a moment and said, "I think I prefer drawing comics. I'm not up to the job of the investigation bureau." The female director coldly scanned the situation in the room. "I think you can do it." "I can't." Ning Shu looked at Snake King who was surrounded. It would be best if Snake King died. It would save her the trouble of taking action. However, Snake King had a powerful weapon, which was the demon. If Snake King ruthlessly activated the demon's power, it would be difficult for the people present to resist. Now Snake King had many concerns. He did not dare to use his full strength because of his women and children. Also, there was a retarded eagle guarding him. After he destroyed a wave, the retarded eagle came again and fought him in turns. When a person was exhausted, it was impossible to fight without stopping. Moreover, there was a barrier. Everyone was defeated and they had to break the barrier before they could leave. Snake King's heart was in a mess. In the end, it was all this retarded eagle's fault. If it was not trapped here, who knew where it would be now? It would be easy and carefree. The family was happy and harmonious. It could not be better. The more Snake King thought about it, the more regretful he felt. If he had known, he would not have taken action so early. Snake King, who was entangled by the demon and the Taoist priest, released a powerful move. A violent demon aura hurricane blew the demon and the old Taoist priest away. Everyone slammed heavily into the wall, leaving a crack in the wall. The old Taoist and the demon spat out blood and struggled on the ground for a long time, unable to get up. If not for Ning Shu's water curtain enchantment, people would have been alarmed by such a big commotion. Everyone should give her a thank you gift. Snake King panted violently and looked at Ning Shu with his scarlet eyes. "Are you acting like this because you like her?" Ning Shu asked as Snake King hugged An Yuyun who was in his arms. "Ning Shu. You're thinking too much. She's trying to kill you because she wants to kill you. It has nothing to do with An Yuyun." Hearing Snake King's words, An Yuyun's pale face was filled with humiliation. "You." An Yuyun said with some pain, "What do you mean? Am I that kind of person?" Ning Shu did not say anything as he looked at Snake King. Snake King said, "Even if you did it for, what's your name?" Snake King lowered his head and asked An Yuyun. Until now, he still did not know this woman's name. An Yuyun bit her pale lips and said with difficulty, "An Yuyun." She didn't even know her name. Snake King probably found a random woman to hang out with. But An Yuyun felt that it was an honor. No woman had given birth to two snakes. Snake King Ning Shu said, "Although we are rivals in love, we shouldn't fight like this for An Yuyun." Ning Shu's heart did not waver. He even wanted to laugh. What was this? If it was for the client, it would be okay. But for her, she did not show that she liked An Yuyun. Snake King wanted to divide her and the investigation bureau. He wanted to let the people in the investigation bureau know that they were rivals in love and that there was an Yuyan. An Yuyan played a decisive role. An Yuyan felt dizzy, and her body felt very uncomfortable. Her body couldn't bear the devastation from all sides. An Yuyan wanted to leave here. She really wanted to. When An Yuyan heard Snake King say that Ning Shu liked her, she was a little embarrassed. It was not like he liked her. But An Yuyan still begged Ning Shu, please let us go. If we fight like this, we will only hurt each other. Ning Shu suddenly felt that he had become a stick to break up a couple. Snake King stuck out his forked tongue. How about we leave together? We can share the demon. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and asked, there is only one demon. How can we share it? You are also a demon. You should understand the problem that demons are facing now. Soon, there will be no place for demons, Snake King Ning Shu said. It seemed that Snake King was right. The female director looked at Ning Shu and said lightly, you can leave with Snake King, but you will be wanted by the investigation bureau. You decide. Ning Shu was speechless. Fuck, what does it have to do with me? I was just here to watch the show. Why did I get involved? It seemed that Ning Shu had become the key person now. Ning Shu said, you guys continue to fight. Pretend that I don't exist. The female director Ning Shu said, after cleaning up, you should also go to the investigation bureau to make a statement. I didn't do anything. Why do I have to make a statement? Ning Shu frowned and asked. It's just a matter of perfecting your file. We, the investigation bureau, have to be aware of the stronger demons. This mission enforcer was really integrated into the identity of the director. Ning Shu now had a distrust of both the investigation bureau and Snake King. Ning Shu would not cooperate with Snake King, but it seemed that he would be forced to go to the investigation bureau. The female director's attitude made Ning Shu suspect that there was something fishy going on in the investigation bureau. The female director Ning Shu asked, what do you want to ask? I can answer you now. You don't have to go to the investigation bureau. The female director glanced at Ning Shu casually. It's not just about your identity. We also need to record your basic skills. The purpose of recording these things is that if there are demons causing trouble, we can determine the identity of this demon based on the way they attack. Ning Shu suddenly understood and said, oh. The Snake King sneered. Forget about it. Other than me, none of the monsters that have entered the investigation bureau have been able to walk out. Ning Shu seemed to be very afraid. He took a step away from the female director and asked carefully, really? The female bureau chief chuckled. Are you stupid? You believe him and not me? At least we still have a relationship. We can cooperate. Ning Shu looked very confused. I don't know who to believe. I'm an innocent child. Don't lie to me. The female director was speechless. The person doing the mission was a fool. Are you kidding me? Chapter 1711. The Snake King spat out its scarlet tongue and said, retarded eagle, listen to me. Basically, no monster can walk out of the investigation bureau alive. You are no exception. Remove the enchantment. I will take you with me to the monster realm. What happened before was a misunderstanding. I misunderstood that you were not good to my woman and child. I will make it up to you. This was the first time the Snake King had admitted defeat in its life. The female director looked at Ning Shu silently. If we can cooperate, let's cooperate. Let's not have internal strife. Ning Shu understood what the female director meant, but Ning Shu was resistant to going to the investigation bureau. This feeling could not be dispelled. Also, the Snake King might not be lying. Now that the Snake King wanted to rope her in, even if what it said was half true, it still showed that the investigation bureau was a forbidden place for monsters. Also, Ning Shu was now a body of laws, and the law imprint could be taken away. Ning Shu could not guarantee that no one would covet her imprint. After all, with the law imprint, not only did she control the power of law, but she also had the support of a law city. She could just lie down and collect money. Moreover, there was no prohibition against this kind of plundering. Therefore, Ning Shu had to be vigilant. If the other party did not know her identity, it would be fine. But if they knew her identity and came for her, it would be more troublesome. The Snake King looked at Ning Shu with its vertical eyes. Everything I said is true. Humans are envious of the lifespan of monsters. They have been studying our genes. Many monsters have died. Ning Shu patted her chest and hit her wound. She immediately hissed in pain. It hurts. It's so scary. Sister, I'm here. A young man appeared at the door and walked in slowly. He glanced at the messy living room and walked to the female director's side. Why did you call me back in such a hurry? This man was very young. It seemed that he could not be called a man, but a boy. He was about 22 or 23 years old, youthful and energetic. Dressed in neat clothes, he looked at the female director with adoration in his eyes. Ning Shu thought, taboo love. Hearing this boy call the female bureau chief sister, is it a form of address or are they really related by blood? However, this had nothing to do with her. She was more concerned about the changes this boy's appearance would bring to the battle. The female director introduced him to Ning Shu. This is Nangong, the genius exorcist of the Nangong family. Ning Shu replied with an "oh." He felt that the female director was warning him. The snake demon stole the demon from the investigation bureau. You should know the importance of demons. Go, Nangong. Big sister believes in you. The female director said gently to the boy. Go, Pikachu. The boy's eyes lit up and he was full of energy. Yes, wait for me. I'll skin the snake demon and give it to you. The boy looked as if he wanted to do something for the person he loved, to please the person he loved. The female director nodded. The Snake King was about to explode from anger. A little brat who hadn't even grown out all his hair actually wanted to skin him alive. He didn't even look at his own weight. The Snake King spat out a mouthful of venom at Nangong, who was charging towards it, and swept its tail towards Nangong. Nangong dodged the venom and took out a rope. The rope was golden in color. Nangong threw the rope towards the Snake King and it wrapped around the Snake King's body. And Yuyun was also tied up with the rope. The Snake King struggled with all his might, trying to break free from the rope. However, he couldn't really break free from the rope. The Snake King frowned. What the hell was this? Nangong said in high spirits, demon. This is our Nangong family's heirloom. It's a demon binding rope that specializes in binding demons. Alright, stop playing, the female director said to Nangong. Yes. Nangong saluted the female director, looking very lively and mischievous. Nangong took out a dagger. It looked like he was going to use this dagger to skin the Snake King. Big sister, you haven't used the Snake King's skin to make a bag, right? I'll skin it for you to make a bag later, Nangong said to the female director as he played with the dagger. The female director was a little serious. Don't be careless. The Snake King was speechless. The Snake King was a lawless person. Today, someone wanted to skin him to make a bag. The Snake King struggled with all his might, but he couldn't break free from the rope for a while. He looked at the kid carelessly holding the dagger and scratching his body. The Snake King sneered. When he dominated the world, this kid was still drinking milk. He thought a rope could tie him up. Wasn't he looking down on him too much? And Yuyun was trembling in fear. She was so scared that she cried. She begged Nangong, why can't you let him go? Let us go. You are a human, right? Why are you speaking up for the demon? Nangong said bluntly. Do you know that if it weren't for the investigation bureau intimidating the demon would have killed people in human territory. Now, you should be reincarnated as a human. You are actually pleading for mercy for the demon. Whether you are a human or not is determined by your position at birth. You are actually so stupid as to plead for mercy for the demon. Idiot. Nangong Xiaotian was really a straightforward boy. After he finished speaking, he even asked for credit from the female bureau chief. Sister, don't you think I am right? An Yuyun was stunned by Nangong Xiaotian's words. Probably because she had never been spoken to like this before, she directly cried. Don't be naughty. Hurry up and get the demon out. The female bureau chief shook her head and said to Nangong. Nangong held the dagger. The dagger was very sharp. It directly cut through the Snake King's snake skin. Blood splashed out. Daddy. The two little snakes cried anxiously. There are still two little snakes. Nangong Xiaotian didn't have the slightest bit of pity for the demon. He directly grabbed the two little snakes. Sister, look at these two snakes. They are a black and white pair. Ning Shu was speechless. What was the matter with this Nangong Xiaotian who suddenly appeared? It seemed that he was a demon-catching expert. She had to be more vigilant later. Nangong played with the two snakes back and forth. He tied the two snakes into a knot or pulled the bodies of the two snakes long. Daddy, save me, save us, the two little snakes painfully begged the Snake King for help. Nangong laughed heartily like a lively boy. He held the dagger and stabbed it into the little black snake's head, piercing through its brain. The little black snake whose head was pierced by the dagger was still constantly curling up and struggling. Nangong grabbed the little black snake's head and pressed the dagger with one hand. With a hard pull, the little black snake's body in Nangong's hand was cut into two halves. White flesh was exposed. Nangong dismembered the little white snake and said to the female bureau chief, "This kind of little snake must be very fresh. Take it back and roast it." Nangong said it easily, as if he was talking about the weather today. Chapter 17:12. When An Yuyin saw that her child was dead, her eyes widened and her eyes turned bloodshot. She let out a chuckle as her lips trembled, unable to say a word. Finally, she fainted. She probably couldn't accept the fact that her children had been killed in such a cruel manner. Ning Shu looked at Nangong. This person killed demons like they were chickens. He treated demons as though they were creatures at the bottom of the food chain. Humans and demons both believed themselves to be the noblest. Snake King's eyes turned scarlet when he saw his two children die in front of him. His body grew larger and larger as though he wanted to break the rope. Snake King roared as his eyes turned scarlet. Tears of blood flowed out of his eyes. "I want all of you to be buried with my children. You must be buried with them. Eagle, you've also seen how humans treat demons. If you go against me again today, I will not rest until you die. Furthermore, I will blame the death of my child on you. Everyone present must die." The Snake King was extremely angry, and pain filled his internal organs. The flames of hatred burned Snake King's mind. Snake King spat out a demon as it spun rapidly. An extremely powerful demonic power erupted from the demon. "Everyone, die. Die." Demon King wished he could destroy the world. The demon spun rapidly, but in the blink of an eye, the demon disappeared. Yes, it disappeared. Snake King's roar came to an abrupt halt as he remained in a daze for a long time. At that moment, a finger snap was heard. Everyone felt their eyes light up as though they had suddenly woken up. Snake King was bound by the demon binding rope, but the two little snakes in his arms were still alive. Nangong stood beside the female chief as she took out a small leather bag to store the demon. Ning Shu was a little dumbfounded. What happened just now? Was it an illusion? Was it an environment set up by the female chief? Could this be her attack method? The melon seeds in Ning Shu's hand exploded in fright. He had to be careful with such a calm attack. Snake King was also dumbfounded. His demon had been snatched away. The female chief said to Nangong, "Finish off Snake King. Leaving him alive is always a disaster." In particular, the Snake King could control 10,000 snakes. If these snakes gathered together, it would have a great impact on the city. Snake King gritted his teeth and said, "You cheated." Nangong walked over and took out the two little snakes from Snake King's bosom. Just like in the illusion, he dismembered the two little snakes. One had to know that this was not an illusion. It was real. The two little snakes were the Snake King's children. If the Snake King died, they had the highest chance of becoming the next Snake King. And Yuyan had fainted when she saw the illusion, and now she couldn't even see her child for the last time. The Snake King was dumbfounded. His demon had been tricked by a cunning human, and his child had died twice in front of him. It was enough to deal a blow to the Snake King's arrogant heart. Had people become so powerful these days? Without the demon, Snake King basically had no hope of turning the tables. The Snake King looked at Ning Shu with hatred. If it wasn't for this stupid eagle, he wouldn't have been trapped here, and the things that happened later wouldn't have happened. Ning Shu was stared at by the Snake King with hatred. He spread his hands and said, "I didn't expect it anyway. I thought you could kill them, but it seemed that the female director was too powerful." After the item was recovered, the female director was in the mood to talk to Ning Shu. "Come with me to the investigation bureau." Ning Shu took 2 steps back and said with a smile, "You can say anything here. There's no need to go to the investigation bureau." The female director tilted her head and said with a hint of innocence, "What are you afraid of? Sister, should I kill the Snake King first and then skin him or thin him first?" Nangong Chao asked the female director. The female director turned to Nangong Chao and said, "Kill him first. Don't drag it out. If you drag it out, it will be easy for something to happen." Ning Shu looked at the female director and felt that she had placed all her attention on him. After dealing with the Snake King, was it her turn now? She should also be the female director's target. Ning Shu pointed with her finger, and the temperature in the room gradually rose. The snake that was frozen to the point that it couldn't move slowly began to recover. The temperature in the room was getting higher and higher, and the water turned into steam. These snakes hissed and spat out their tongues as they swam around the room. The female director looked at the densely packed snakes and frowned. She looked at Ning Shu and asked, "What do you mean by this?" Although the Snake King was tied up, these snakes had awakened, and he had some small soldiers under him who could command them. The Snake King hissed and spat out his tongue, commanding these snakes to attack the people from the investigation bureau. Nangong Chao stood in front of the female director and blocked wave after wave of snake attacks for her. There was a water wall in front of Ning Shu. These small snakes couldn't get close to Ning Shu at all. They were blocked by the water wall. Ning Shu observed the female director. It seemed that her illusion could only target creatures with thoughts, emotions, desires, and weaknesses. Now, these small snakes that relied on their instincts to survive couldn't use illusions. The female director looked at Ning Shu with her hands behind her back. "What do you mean?" He had been trying to smooth things over. It didn't seem like he was on the Snake King's side and deliberately let the frozen snakes wake up for the Snake King to control. He seemed to be wary of her as well. Should the female director say that this person was sensitive or vigilant? Ning Shu said honestly, "Sister, I actually don't want to go to the investigation bureau at all. I want to live." The female director said helplessly, "When did I want your life? You must be paranoid. Why would I want your life for no reason? Why would I want this feud for no reason?" Ning Shu blinked her eyes. If that was the case, it seemed that she was measuring the heart of a gentleman with her own mean measure. Then why do you have to go to the investigation bureau? Ning Shu spread his hands and said, I'm really afraid that I won't be able to come out if I go in. That place is not gentle to monsters at all. Nangong stood in front of the female director and killed the snakes. The female director and Ning Shu stood opposite each other. It felt a little peaceful. The female bureau chief suddenly smiled. You're really sensitive. You actually don't want to go just because you don't want to. You're so scared. I'm starting to look down on you. I thought you were someone I could cooperate with. Forget it. Ning Shu wasn't angry. Provocation didn't work on her. On the contrary, it was precisely because of this that Ning Shu was somewhat certain that this person might have come for her, or even for her law imprint. He didn't know whether the core in a woman's body was a man or a woman. Ning Shu could become a man, but that didn't mean that male mission enforcers couldn't become women. From now on, not only would she have to fight with the people in the mission world, but she would also have to fight with her colleagues. Because the things on her were too tempting. It seemed that she would have to exchange for more amulets in the future. Even if she failed the mission and was erased, there would be amulets to protect her. The path of the strong was difficult, but Ning Shu was fearless. Chapter 1713. Ning Shu felt that he might have met someone familiar. It was definitely someone who knew him or someone he had met once. Ning Shu maintained his composure as he confronted and dealt with the female director. Without knowing the other party's background, Ning Shu wouldn't act rashly. This was especially so for mission enforcers who were colleagues. They might meet frequently in the future. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't let the situation turn tense. If it turned tense, he could only do as he pleased. The female director smiled at Ning Shu. It was the kind of smile that indicated that she had the pearl of wisdom in her hands. It made Ning Shu a little unhappy. If you smile, I'll smile too. Ning Shu also grinned and smiled calmly. Let's all laugh together. The female director, Nangong Xiaotian, seemed to have been injected with chicken blood as he killed all the snakes in the room. He wanted to show off his abilities and muscles in front of the female director. After killing for a while, he asked the female director, Sis, do you think I look good killing them? Then, the female director nodded with a doting expression and agreed. Ning Shu looked at Snake King. Snake King's body shrank as he tried to escape the rope. However, as his body shrank, the rope remained firmly tied to his body. Furthermore, as Snake King's body shrank, the rope tightened. The rope was originally used to tie An Yuyan together. With this tightening, An Yuyan spat out a mouthful of blood. The unconscious An Yuyan woke up and looked at the dead snakes in the room. She thought of her dead son and her face turned ashen. She was in a daze. Her child was dead. An Yuyan stared at the genius demon hunter, Nangong, who was trying his best to act cool in front of the female director. You killed my child. You killed my child. An Yuyan roared at Nangong. Nangong scratched his head and asked in puzzlement, What child? Where is the child? Nangong looked around and didn't see any children. There were no children, but piles of dead snakes. An Yuyan vomited blood from anger at the straightforward Nangong. Ning Shu kindly explained, It's the two black and white snakes you killed. They're her children. Nangong was stunned for a moment. He smiled and said, Don't joke around. How can a human have children with a monster? An Yuyan was furious. She glared at Nangong with hatred. Nangong was the only one who could make An Yuyan so angry. Nangong's expression turned serious when he saw An Yuyan's reaction. That's why people say that women are troublesome. She has the mentality of a little woman all day long. She doesn't care about her race at all. She even has an illicit relationship with a snake. Is she trying to give birth to a demon's offspring? Sister, I'm not talking about your feminine mentality. You are the most charming and courageous woman I've ever seen. Ordinary women can't compare to you. Nangong stepped on an Yuyun and then flattered the female director. Ning Shu was speechless. What kind of situation was this? Alright, it seemed like he had been stuffed with dog food. What do you know? What does a cold and heartless person like you know? No matter what they are my children. What does a cold and heartless person like you know about feelings? Do you know what love is? You are just cold executioners, and Yuyun shouted with tears streaming down her face. Her voice was heart-wrenching and full of accusation. Nangong scratched his head with a baffled look. He looked at the female director. What is she saying? She is saying that you don't know about feelings, love, or the true feelings of others. You are a cold and heartless executioner, said the female director indifferently. Nangong rolled his eyes. I am an executioner. I can directly destroy your feelings and love. What can you do to me? Fucking retard. You enjoy the peace that others have exchanged for with their lives, and then you say that others are cruel. You are really fucking retards. Why are there so many retards who only know about feelings and love? Nangong despised an Yuyun. Don't talk to me about demons and humans coexisting peacefully. If you have the ability to make demons listen to you, I'll kneel down in front of you and call you Grandaunt. I was born to kill demons. Nangong put his hands on his hips and pointed his thumb at himself. Ning Shu felt that Nangong's ability to shoot his mouth off was amazing. He was full of sarcasm, and Ning Shu was convinced. It was still the same saying. There was no such thing as peace and quiet. There were only people who carried the burden for you. A lot of peace was obtained through the protection and sacrifice of others. Who didn't want to live the life they wanted? They wanted to marry a peerless hero, but they also wanted the peerless hero to become soft and tender. It was difficult to take care of everyone and a small family. Ning Shu felt that a person's breadth of mind had to be bigger. One had to stand high and see far to know how big the world was. And Yuyun's face was pale. She was so angry at Nangong that she fainted. Nangong held the dagger and stabbed it into Snake King's body. Blood splattered out. I'm a cold-blooded executioner. Nangong Chao smiled at an Yuyun. I hate women like you the most. I like women like Big Sister. Ning Shu glanced at the female director. Yes, genius Nangong's taste was mature and mature. Ning Shu watched as he moved towards the window, preparing to retreat. Snake King's body was stabbed by the dagger. He grunted and spat a mouthful of venom at Nangong. Nangong did a somersault to avoid the venom. The venom splattered on the ground and sizzled. Snake King spat out his snake tongue. Do you really think that I'm someone who can be defeated so easily? Even if there are no demons, what can you do to me? Nangong smiled and said, I knew that Snake King wasn't that simple. I would definitely be prepared. You know that humans are best at using tools. Nangong took out his gun. This is a new weapon that has been developed recently. The bullet can completely penetrate your scales. As Nangong spoke, he fired a shot at Snake King. Not only did the bullet penetrate Snake King's body, but it also hit the wall and went deep into the wall. 2 bloody holes appeared on Snake King's body as he bled profusely. Are you alright? How are you? An Yuyun immediately asked in tears when she saw that Snake King had been shot. Nothing must happen to you. Snake King endured the pain and stared at Nangong. Punk, I'll remember you. I'll remember your Nangong family. Nangong nodded. Oh, you must be seeking revenge on the Nangong family, right? The Nangong family has always been hated by demons. There are quite a number of demons seeking revenge on the Nangong family. One won't make a difference. However, to save me the trouble, I'll still kill you. Nan Gong pressed the gun against Snake King's body and fired a few more shots. The bullets were extremely lethal. Furthermore, they were fired against the body. Why do you have to go to this extent? Why can't you let us go? Why can't you let us go? And Yuyin roared angrily at Nan Gong. He was practically a devil. He was torturing and killing people. Let him go. Once he recovers, I'll be the unlucky one. Are you stupid? Of course I'll kill him. And Yuyin was an ordinary woman. First, she had been swept into the world of demons. Now, such a situation where her life was at stake left her dumbfounded. Chapter 17-14. No matter how much An Yuyin begged, Nan Gong was indifferent. Every time An Yuyin said something, Nan Gong would shoot at Snake King. An Yuyin was so scared that she didn't dare to speak. An Yuyin felt that Nan Gong was a big pervert. Nan Gong felt that An Yuyin was simply a weirdo. She didn't seem to have any sense of right and wrong. In comparison, Nan Gong felt that his sister was so cool. Seeing this, Ning Shu silently took a step back. She was made of flesh and blood. She couldn't take a bullet. The female director walked to Ning Shu with her hands behind her back. Ning Shu asked, "Miss, what's the matter?" The female director looked at Ning Shu. "I think you are a talent. Go to the investigation bureau to work. Food and accommodation will be provided. Monsters have big appetites. The investigation bureau will provide food. What do you think? Even if you don't do it for yourself, you should think about your client." Ning Shu said, I need time to think about it." "What's there to think about? Do you think I'll trick you?" The female bureau chief leaned against the window with her arms crossed in front of her chest and said leisurely. Her every move was charming. Her long legs looked particularly good wrapped in leather pants. Ning Shu pushed his glasses and said, "Actually, I'm really afraid you'll trick me." Snake King was a lesson for her. Now, there were probably dozens of holes in Snake King's body. Killing Demon Master Nan Gong was like playing a game. Ning Shu felt that Nan Gong was scaring and threatening her. Ning Shu's expression didn't change. He said to the female director, "Your illusion is good." She had fooled everyone. "Every mission taker has their own skills to survive," the female director said lightly. After eating countless bullets, Snake King finally died. His body was densely packed with bullet holes. And they were very neat, row after row. It was completely Nan Gong's bad taste. And Yuyin was completely dumbfounded. First, her child died. After being chased by monsters, she left the eggshell in her body. The child she had painstakingly given birth to died. After the child died, her father also died. A huge snake lay next to her. And Yuyin looked as if she had been struck by lightning. Her lips trembled and her eyes glazed over. Nan Gong withdrew the demon binding rope and saluted the female director. "Sister, mission accomplished. Be good. Tie him up for me as well. Bring him back to the bureau to make a file." The female bureau chief walked to the side and said to Nan Gong, "I promise to complete the mission." Nan Gong said straightforwardly. Ning Shu was speechless. "And tie her up." The demon binding rope attacked Ning Shu, trying to bind Ning Shu. Ning Shu would never let the rope get close to him. Snake King was bound by the rope and had no way of fighting back. Ning Shu was afraid that he would fall into the illusion of the female director, so he bit his tongue hard. Ning Shu held onto the rope while Nan Gong held onto the other end. The two of them tugged and tugged at each other, neither of them willing to let go. Ning Shu thought about it and decided that it was the safest to hold on to the immortal binding rope like this. Nan Gong tugged at the rope. "Let go." Ning Shu said, "I'd be an idiot to let go." Nangong smiled mischievously. If you like to tug, then tug. Nangong suddenly let go. His end of the rope came around, trying to bind Ning Shu. Ning Shu was shocked. If he was tied up, he would really be at the mercy of others. Ning Shu pointed at the rope and a layer of ice immediately covered the rope. Ning Shu froze the rope. Soon, the ice on the demon binding rope was shaken off. An ice wall appeared in front of Ning Shu, blocking the rope. Ning Shu quickly jumped out of the window and flew out of the water curtain barrier. Ning Shu pointed his finger at the water veil barrier, and the water veil instantly became thicker. I'll return the favor. Come out of the barrier if you can. Ning Shu laughed and turned into a mountain eagle, ready to fly away. The female director leaned against the window and looked up at Ning Shu. If you want to be wanted by the FBI and the entire country, you'd better keep running. Ning Shu said, you're really sinister. You're using your position. It'd be a waste not to use it. Let me tell you, if you dare to run, you'll be waiting for the country's A-level arrest warrant. You might not be able to stay in the human world. Let me think, what crime should I charge you with? Rapist, murderer, or serial murderer? The female director seemed to be very distressed. Ning Shu was speechless. If you do this, I'll have to suspect your intentions. You really seem to be targeting me. Ning Shu stared at the female director. The female director pointed at the water curtain and it broke. Let me tell you, I'm good at things like barriers and illusions. Let me tell you, seduction isn't just for seducing men. Ning Shu narrowed his eyes. You're Hongyu. You're slow. You only recognized me now. The female director propped up her chin and looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu thought for a moment, his mind turning 1,000 times. Finally, he said, what a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. I'm here specifically to find you. I've taken a fancy to your nomological imprint. Hongyu pointed at Ning Shu's forehead. Ning Shu smiled. You're really straightforward. You've stated your purpose so bluntly. Do you have absolute confidence? Yes, I have this confidence. I won't hide my purpose at all. I've taken a fancy to your water nomological law. It'd be best if you could give it to me. If you can't, I can only snatch it, Hongyu said calmly. She didn't seem to feel that there was anything wrong. Only people of the same level were worthy of being angry and concerned. In Hongyu's heart, Ning Shu was clearly not on the same level. It was natural for her to want Ning Shu's things. To be able to compare with Ah Wan, she must be a capable person. Ning Shu said very calmly, you want the water nomological law because you want to compete with Ah Wan, right? According to the Chongsam man, Hongyu had comprehended a very obscure nomological law. If she obtained the water nomological law, she would have the ability to compete with Ah Wan's fire nomological law. Hongyu treated Ah Wan as a competitor. When the two of them fought, Ning Shu became the sacrificial lamb. This was because Ning Shu had the water nomological imprint, which happened to be what Hongyu needed. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. When I didn't obtain the nomological imprint, you could have just gone and comprehended the water nomological law. Now that I've comprehended it, you actually want to snatch it from me. Can't you be a little more honest? Hongyu said, I was trying to comprehend it, but you beat me to it. Is that my fault? Ning Shu shrugged. It's not your fault. Something like comprehension can't be obtained through jealousy. However, the nomological imprint does exist. This kind of thing can be snatched, Hongyu said bluntly. Ning Shu let out a long sigh. I look so weak. Even if I want to snatch something, I can't be bothered to find a reason. Find a fig leaf. Hongyu blinked. Yes, we're all mission enforcers who have seen the world. We can't be bothered to act like a whore and set up a monument to her chastity. Ning Shu gave her a thumbs up. You're so direct that I don't know what to say. He didn't need a fig leaf because he didn't put her on an equal footing. Chapter 17:15. Her first mission after obtaining the law imprint was to encounter a mission enforcer who wanted to steal her law. Moreover, it was Hongyu. This was what Hongyu meant when she said that they should work together to complete missions. How did Hongyu know which world she was in? Hongyu was one of them. Were there others? Ning Shu faced Hongyu calmly. Ever since she obtained the law incarnation, she had been prepared for this. If you want to protect your own things, you have to work hard. Moreover, you have to have great strength. To forge iron, you have to be tough. Ning Shu stepped on a thin cloud and looked down at Hongyu condescendingly. Do you think I'll let you take my things away obediently? No one is willing to have their things taken away. You'll definitely struggle, but I advise you not to struggle. It's useless. It's all in vain. Hongyu said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu rolled his eyes and said, I remember that the law imprint will only peel off when I'm dead. So, you want to kill me? Hongyu smiled, giving off a feeling of peerless beauty. Every frown and smile was magnificent. That's right. So, you want to kill me? Ning Shu tilted his head and asked like a curious baby. But I remember that you don't have the right to kill mission enforcers. Hongyu's relaxed state showed that she did not take Ning Shu seriously at all, nor did she consider Ning Shu to be on the same level. Hongyu said, there are some items in the shop. There are too many items to choose from. Ning Shu gave a flat, oh, and asked again, then I'm quite honored to have you spend so much money to exchange for an item to kill me. However, can I ask if this item can completely kill me? Hongyu's red lips opened slightly. I've already offended you and stolen your things. Since I've already offended someone, I have to completely eliminate them. No matter how small a nail is, it will still hurt and bleed. If it were you, what would you do? Ning Shu nodded. I would do the same. Cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots is the right way. But I also want to fight back. Maybe I can kill them instead. Ning Shu said with a smile. Hongyu glanced at Ning Shu. There are 3 illusions in life. My phone vibrates, she likes me, and I can fight back. Those are just illusions. Ning Shu smiled. I like your sense of humor. If she was really killed by the item, even the amulet wouldn't be able to save her. Ning Shu tilted her head and looked at Hongyu. Perhaps her career as a mission enforcer would end in Hongyu's hands. This was Ning Shu's first encounter with a powerful mission enforcer. Ning Shu chuckled, Hongyu, you're talking so much with me because you're afraid of my strength. They were all testing each other. She was the law incarnation of the law of water, so she still had a certain degree of deterrence. Hongyu nodded. I'm afraid of the law of water. After all, it's a powerful law. However, I'm guessing that you don't dare to use your law wantonly. If you cause a plain disaster, the law incarnation of the law of wind and thunder will serve as a warning to you. Especially the law of water. Once you lose control, the consequences will not be small. Water and fire are the easiest laws to lose control of. Hongyu raised her head and looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu sighed. I'm a person who loves my life too much. I can't always put all my eggs in one basket. But when it comes to putting all my eggs in one basket, I'll drag at least one person down with me. Only then will I not be at a disadvantage. Hongyu smiled. Compared to Ah Wan's arrogance, you seem to be more ruthless. Ah Wan prides herself on being a noble woman and never kills people easily. You, on the other hand, seem to be passionate about killing people. How did you comprehend the law of water, which is on the gentle side? Ning Shu was speechless. She made it sound like a murderous demon. Aren't you preparing to kill people now? Alright, you're getting impatient after talking so much. Then, let's meet again. No, perhaps we won't have the chance to meet again. Hong Yu took out a tool. The tool was a nail. It was silver white and shone with a cold light. This thing looked familiar. Ning Shu felt that he had seen this nail somewhere before. This is a soul nail? Ning Shu asked. Back then, she had wanted to exchange for this thing to kill Zhang Jiasen. However, it seemed to be an evil tool, so Ning Shu gave up on it. The soul nail would pierce into the soul and absorb a person's soul power. The soul power would be absorbed by the soul nail. It was a tool that could rob others of their soul power. As long as one was in a soul state, they would not be able to escape the soul nail. Moreover, the soul power in the soul nail could be used by the user. This soul nail was equivalent to an energy converter. This isn't a soul nail. If you want to call it a soul nail, you can call it a soul nail. It's an improved version of the soul nail. The soul nail can only slowly convert soul power, but this tool can instantly exterminate the soul. Moreover, it will accomplish its mission. It's useless even if you run to the ends of the earth. Ning Shu, you're not only taking my law imprint, but you're also taking my soul power and soul origin. I don't care about your soul power. Soul power that hasn't been processed is too impure. Your soul origin is still somewhat valuable. Hong Yu said casually, completely ignoring Ning Shu's rolling eyes. Ning Shu looked at the nail in Hong Yu's hand and felt his soul origin tremble slightly. He couldn't help but tremble in the face of danger. Ning Shu smiled slightly. If worse comes to worst, I'll just go for broke. You're not the only one who's prepared. Ning Shu used a thick water barrier to protect himself. I already said that barriers and illusions are for me to play with. Hong Yu pointed her finger and broke Ning Shu's protective barrier. Ning Shu wasn't angry. He looked at the nail flying towards him and erected an ice wall in front of him. The nail directly pierced through the ice wall and flew towards Ning Shu's face. Ning Shu tilted his head, and the nail brushed past Ning Shu's earlobe. Ning Shu's ear bled. The nail that flew out actually turned around and flew towards Ning Shu. Sure enough, the mission was accomplished. She was the nail's target, and the mission was to kill her. Ning Shu had no choice but to deal with this tool. If the nail really pierced his body and soul, he would really be killed. From then on, there would no longer be a mission enforcer called Ning Shu. Her path to becoming a powerhouse would be forced to stop, and she would even lose her life. Ning Shu clenched his cheeks. What he had experienced in the past was nothing. From now on, his future world would become more dangerous, more exciting, and more vast. Ning Shu dodged the nail and pointed at Hong Yu. Even if I can't kill you, I can still make you uncomfortable. Let's hurt each other. If I don't have a good time, then the people who hurt me won't have a good time either. Hong Yu seemed to kindly remind him, you should still pay attention to the nail. If it pierces you, your soul will scatter. Chapter 17-16. Hong Yu sat calmly on the fishing platform as she watched Ning Shu being entangled by the nail, unable to fend for herself. Hong Yu smiled faintly, but the smile on her face stiffened as she frowned. Pang, pang, pang. Hong Yu's blood vessels all burst as blood gushed out of her body like water pillars. Her skin was not in good condition at all. Her heart pounded violently as if it had lost its rhythm. Finally, with a pang sound, her heart exploded. Hong Yu instantly turned into a bloody person. You have some ability. Hong Yu, whose heart had exploded, could still speak. She sighed, the water law imprint is really a good thing. However, you can't escape from this nail. I didn't lose to you, I lost to the water law. Hong Yu stopped breathing as she fell to the ground. You lost to me. Who told me to become the law incarnation? If you don't like it, just hold it in. Hong Yu was dead, but the nail was still chasing Ning Shu relentlessly. The nail's goal was to pierce Ning Shu's body. How can I get rid of this nail? Fuck, this is such a scam. The person who set up the illusion was dead, and the illusion was broken. Nangong Xiaotian, who was immersed in the illusion, also woke up. Seeing the bloody person on the ground, he did not dare to recognize her. The person who was talking to him just a moment ago was now a dead person. Hong Yu previously spoke to Ning Shu without restraint because she had set up a beautiful illusion for Nangong. Now that Hong Yu was dead, the illusion was also broken. Sister, who killed you? Who killed you? Nangong looked at Ning Shu. It's you. I'm going to kill you. Kill you, damn monster. Ning Shu was entangled by the nail, which chased her tirelessly. It would not stop until it reached its goal. Furthermore, Ning Shu was looking at her with bloodshot eyes. The beam of hatred was enough to kill Ning Shu. Nangong took out the demon binding rope and wanted to tie Ning Shu up. Ning Shu was very annoyed. If she was really entangled, the nail would definitely pierce into her body, and she would be completely finished. Ning Shu pointed his finger at Nangong, and Nangong followed in Hong Yu's footsteps. Blood rushed out of his body, and his heart exploded into a pile of minced meat. The Nangong clan was a big problem. The Nangong clan was a famous monster hunter. Being entangled by the Nangong clan was a big problem. Furthermore, she could not be tied up by the demon binding rope. Once she was tied up, she would be finished. Nangong fell to the ground with his eyes wide open. His eyeballs were filled with blood and tears of blood flowed out. There was only one living person left in the room, and that was An Yuyun, who had no strength to truss a chicken but had survived until now. An Yuyun saw the two people suddenly explode. Blood splattered everywhere. She was so scared that her whole body trembled. She grabbed her hair and curled up into a ball, trembling uncontrollably. She kept mumbling about the child and the Snake King. She was crying and laughing at the same time. The room was in chaos. There were either corpses or snakes. At a glance, there was blood everywhere. An Yuyun hugged her head, and her eyes were a little unfocused. Ning Shu really could not think of a suitable way to deal with the nail. If he did not deal with the nail, she would be obliterated and disappear. Ning Shu was so anxious that cold sweat rolled down his forehead. This was a moment of life and death. What could he do? What could he do? Looking at the nail, Ning Shu rushed into the room through the window. He picked up the female director's corpse on the ground and threw it at the nail. Did this thing have to nail a person before it would stop? Then, he might as well treat a dead horse as a living one. There was no harm in giving it a try. The nail pierced the female director's body and penetrated it. Ning Shu rushed over. Ning Shu was speechless. What the fuck? Could it be that this thing had a program? Like a cannonball, it could specify where to fire. Why was it chasing after her? Ning Shu threw Nangong's corpse over, but it was still penetrated by the nail. The target was still Ning Shu. Fuck. Did he really have to kneel here today? Moreover, Ning Shu was not sure if Hong Yu would come back. Although he had left the female director's body, he could not guarantee that she would not re-enter this plane to check on his results. Moreover, Hong Yu could accurately find the plane he was in. How did she do it? Ning Shu's heart thumped wildly. All the hair on his body stood on end. All the muscles on his body were trembling. Cold sweat flowed into Ning Shu's eyes. Ning Shu did not dare to blink at all. His eyeballs were sore from the sweat. He did not dare to be careless at all. Ning Shu stood in front of the wall. Behind him was a wall. Ning Shu stood still. The shadow of the nail coming towards him was reflected in his pupils. Ning Shu tilted her head and her body slanted. The nail shot into the wall and couldn't come out. Ning Shu let out a long breath. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He did not dare to relax because the nail was vibrating and was about to come out. Ning Shu sprayed some water on the wall and froze the entire wall. This could temporarily trap the nail. The nail was more than 10 centimeters long. It was extremely sharp. If it pierced into a person's body, it could instantly destroy their soul. Fuck, the items in the exchange store were fucking perverted. Not only was there a huge pit, but it was also very perverted. Moreover, Hong Yu was a person with a background. It was hard to guarantee that she would not have any special privileges. What if there was another thing? What could he do to destroy this thing? I found a treasure. Do you want to recycle it? 2333's voice sounded in Ning Shu's mind. Ning Shu was stunned for a moment. He understood what 2333 meant. Recycle it. Using the power of the system to get the nail away, he could even get some money. He gave 2333 a thumbs up for his wit. Ning Shu pointed his finger. The ice on the wall cracked. The nail vibrated and came out of the wall. Ning Shu turned around. Don't move. 2333 said. Ning Shu nodded. Seeing the nail flying towards him, it was a bit difficult to stand still. However, out of trust for 2333, Ning Shu stood still and watched the nail fly towards his forehead. However, the nail stopped an inch away from Ning Shu's forehead. It kept spinning and finally disappeared. Ning Shu's body went limp. He sat on the ground and wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. His limbs were weak. Ning Shu asked 2333, how much is this thing worth? 1500 faith power. Of course, this is the recycling price. The original price was 3000. 2333 said. Ning Shu was speechless. The exchange store was really greedy. The recycling price was cut in half. However, it was not bad to get 1500 faith power for free. Can all items be recycled like this? Ning Shu asked 2333. No. It's just that this thing has no owner now. If the quest giver is still in this world, the system cannot recycle it. What a loophole. Ning Shu sighed. He felt really tired. The item in the exchange store was actually a cheat for the quest giver. Chapter 1717. As long as one had enough power of faith and merit, one could exchange for items in the exchange store. However, merit and power of faith were very difficult to obtain. Without merit and power of faith, one could only look at these items and drool. In fact, it wasn't considered cheating. After all, merit and power of faith were obtained through hard work and were very rare. Ning Shu sat on the ground and couldn't get up for a long time. After fighting for the entire night, the sky was slightly brighter as sunlight poured out. Ning Shu stood up. It seemed like this room was no longer habitable. Ning Shu saw An Yuyan squatting in the corner, her body trembling. She walked over and pushed An Yuyan. An Yuyan was so frightened that her body convulsed when someone touched her. She trembled like a sieve and shouted nervously, I don't want to. Don't kill me. Child, don't leave me. I'm afraid. An Yuyan's eyes were unfocused as she muttered to herself. She hugged a pile of dead snakes in her arms and called for her child. Ning Shu covered his nose. The smell on An Yuyan's body was really unbearable. Hey, An Yuyan, what's wrong with you? Ning Shu asked An Yuyan. An Yuyan didn't seem to hear Ning Shu's words. She was humming a strange song as she hugged the dead snakes and swayed them around. Ning Shu frowned. Could An Yuyan have gone crazy? Because her man and son were dead, she couldn't take the blow and went crazy. Could she be pretending to be crazy? Ning Shu reached out and pushed An Yuyan again. Hey, An Yuyan. And Yuyan was so frightened that she shrank to the foot of the wall. She cried until tears and snot flowed down her face. Her expression was dull and fearful. Her eyes darted around in a daze. She hugged the dead snakes tightly in her arms. And Yuyan, do you still remember who I am? Ning Shu put his face in front of An Yuyan. An Yuyan immediately lowered her head and clawed at Ning Shu's face. Ning Shu tilted his head back and looked at the panicked and terrified An Yuyan. Ning Shu suddenly held An Yuyan's face in her hands and leaned close to her face. Can you see who I am? Ah! An Yuyan screamed. Her face was distorted and her body was convulsing. Ning Shu let go of An Yuyan's head and frowned at her. He was really crazy. What had happened? Why was he so crazy? Because the child and the man who had spent the night together had died. Ning Shu, on the other hand, felt that this was clearly a chance for him to start his life anew, to start living the life of an ordinary person again. Even if she had given birth to a child and had a man before, it was not impossible for her to start over. From then on, he would break away from the world of monsters and live an ordinary life. Ning Shu couldn't understand why An Yuyan had gone crazy. It was because his life had been too smooth that he had encountered such a situation, which caused him to break down and go crazy. Ning Shu scanned the situation in the room. Other than a few dead people and a room full of snakes, was this scary? From the looks of it, An Yuyan couldn't accept the death of her child and man, which was why she couldn't take it. Ning Shu grabbed An Yuyan's wrist as she screamed and struggled to shake off Ning Shu's hand. Ning Shu held her wrist tightly, preventing her from moving. Ning Shu placed his finger on An Yuyan's pulse and carefully felt it. An Yuyan's pulse was clearly chaotic. It was sometimes strong and sometimes weak. Furthermore, her muscles were trembling uncontrollably. Ning Shu let go of An Yuyan's wrist. An Yuyan had really gone crazy. Ning Shu shook his head and ignored An Yuyan. He found the demon in the bag of the female chief's corpse. Ning Shu's finger touched the demon and felt a powerful demonic power. It was very attractive and attracted demons. Ning Shu put away the demon and carried Snake King's corpse. He transformed into a huge eagle and flew into the sky. Ning Shu had taken the demon and Snake King's corpses because the female chief of the investigation bureau and the genius demon slayer of the Nangong family had died at home. Now that the demon and Snake King had disappeared, everyone believed that Snake King had run away with the demon. Naturally, they wouldn't suspect her. As for An Yuyan, she had already gone crazy. She was immersed in her own world and refused to accept everything in the outside world. She refused to accept any information or harm from the outside world. Ning Shu could understand why An Yuyan had gone crazy after losing her 2 children. However, Ning Shu couldn't understand why she had ended up like this because of a man she had spent a night with. Ning Shu didn't want to do anything to An Yuyan when she was like this. Furthermore, An Yuyan didn't have any direct conflict with her. Previously, she had saved her because of Yuan Liang. Now, she didn't care about An Yuyan at all. Humans needed to save themselves. Ning Shu felt that An Yuyan could pull herself together. She could leave the world of demons and live a normal life. Perhaps Ning Shu was too cold-blooded and couldn't understand the love between them. Ning Shu carried Snake King's corpse and flew in the sky. However, after flying for a while, he couldn't find a place to land. At a glance, all he could see was a gray cement forest. There was no end to it. This was why demons were forced to live like humans. It was because there was no place to rest. Ning Shu was already tired. Now, he had to carry a huge snake and fly everywhere. Now, Ning Shu needed to find a place to rest. Especially since it was daytime, he couldn't appear in front of humans in his eagle form. Ning Shu slowly flew. He eventually flew out of the city's boundaries. Ning Shu flew until it was dark. He was starving. Although he had water to drink and fasting pills to eat when he was thirsty, Ning Shu's stomach was empty. He felt terrible. After flying until it was dark, he finally found a relatively remote town and a farm. This place had an orchard and a farm. In this era, anyone who owned a farm was a tycoon. Ning Shu hid in the farm and found a place to bury Snake King's corpse. He sat by the stream and looked at the demon. The demon in his hand was filled with power and temptation. Ning Shu propped up his chin and played with the demon absent-mindedly. Demons had the power to tempt people's hearts. If he obtained the demon, he would have to take on the responsibility of the demon. After obtaining the demon, he had to follow a certain mission. The greater the power, the greater the mission. This was the principle. Ning Shu placed the demon king in a leather bag. The bag isolated the demon's aura. Ning Shu carried the bag on his body. He had to think about where he should go next. Ning Shu didn't plan on using the demon. He carried it with him. As for whether the person who entrusted him with it used it, it had nothing to do with her. After obtaining power for no reason, he had to follow the mission given by the bead. The war between humans and demons would erupt sooner or later. When Ning Shu passed by the orchard, he plucked a peach to eat. "Oh my God, I'm so hungry." Ning Shu looked at the cows in the pen and drooled. When she left, she was in a hurry and didn't even bring her bank card. Should she go home? The people from the investigation bureau had probably found the rental house by now. Chapter 17-18. Taking away the Demon King pill and Snake King's body was to create an illusion. No matter what, she couldn't be involved in this matter. Especially in the face of the power of the country. Before the client came back, it would be best if she didn't cause any trouble. Ning Shu sat on the peach tree, her body covered with a water barrier, making herself invisible. Ning Shu asked 2333, "Do you think Hong Yu will come back to this plane? If she did it again, it would be a trap. Maybe she will. That woman should have a strong background. It's not easy to locate your location in countless planes." 2333's voice was a little heavy. Ning Shu's heart sank. What the hell was this? Could it be that her location could be easily located in the future? We can hide our location so that the main system can't locate us. Most mission takers choose to hide their location. We can do it too. 2333 said. Ning Shu nodded. Then we'll hide our location and information, 2000 merit points. Ning Shu, fuck you. What do you mean by hiding my location? Ning Shu asked 2333. Actually, it's to let the main system know that there is a mission taker like you. The system doesn't know where you are, but you still have to hand over your soul power. Ning Shu only wanted to say that it was a trap. There was no privacy at all. She didn't even have the right to hide her location, and she still had to pay 2000 merit points. Go to hell. Ning Shu gritted her teeth. Hide it. Always being located, doing missions was double the difficulty. Not only did she have to complete the mission, but she also had to face the mission taker. If it was a mission taker she could cooperate with, it would be fine. But if it was a mission taker with bad intentions, then Ning Shu's work would be doubled. There was only 1,000 days of being a thief, but not 1,000 days of guarding against a thief. Ning Shu pursed her lips. When necessary, she had to use strong means to prevent others from thinking that she was easy to bully. Anyone could provoke her. She had never killed a mission taker before. Especially a mission taker with a law imprint. Is it blocked? Ning Shu asked. Yeah, it's blocked. When you're doing quests, no one can track your location. 2333 replied. Can I track their location? Ning Shu asked. There was no reason for him to hold back after being taken advantage of. Giving him a taste of his own medicine. You won't be able to locate her. Or rather, I should say that none of the other quest takers can locate the location of other quest takers. That's why I said that woman's background is quite big. If we get her, we might be able to bring out a whole bunch of people. 2333 sighed. Ning Shu pursed his lips. Are we just going to let it go? He was really unwilling to accept this. 2333 said, in the ancient times, those who achieved great things not only had extraordinary talents, but they also had a strong will. They could endure what ordinary people could not endure, and they could achieve what ordinary people could not. Revenge is not in this short period of time. Your foundation is a bit weak compared to this kind of veteran quest taker. In terms of popularity and resources, we can't compare. As quest takers, we have a lot of time. 2333 comforted Ning Shu. Ning Shu nodded. I understand. Ning Shu stretched and lay on the tree branch, resting his head on his arms. This quest should be about done. The Snake King was dead, and the demon was in his hands. Ning Shu closed his eyes and took a nap. When he woke up, he saw a white rabbit eating a peach under the tree. It was the kind of peach that fell on the ground. TSK, the little white rabbit was white and white. It picked up its ears and cut its arteries and veins. It was so cute. Ning Shu sat on the tree branch and watched the rabbit eat the peach. Rabbits and eagles were natural enemies. Ning Shu held his chin and watched the furry rabbit eat the peach. The rabbit had a demon aura. It was probably a rabbit that had not yet transformed. Ning Shu pointed his finger, and a pool of water fell on the rabbit. The rabbit's fur was instantly wet, and then it shrunk into a ball. The rabbit raised its head and looked around, but it could not see anyone. It also could not see Ning Shu sitting on the tree branch. The little rabbit was very confused. It shook the water off its body, and then its fur became clumps, like a hedgehog. Ning Shu could not help but laugh. What a cute little rabbit. Little rabbit. Ning Shu broke the water curtain covering his body and showed his body. The little rabbit held the peach and turned its head stiffly. Its red eyes looked at Ning Shu. When the little rabbit saw Ning Shu, all its fur stood up. It ran like crazy. A water curtain blocked the little rabbit. The little rabbit was immediately bounced back. It ran in another direction, but it was bounced back again. The little rabbit was like a crazy person. It ran everywhere with its fur standing up. Ning Shu jumped down from the tree and picked up the rabbit. The little rabbit struggled. I just came to eat some peaches. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. The little rabbit said innocently. Its eyes were watery. I'm so weak. These are small. They don't taste good at all. It's useless to eat them. The little rabbit begged Ning Shu for mercy. Ning Shu touched the little rabbit's ears. Don't be afraid. I won't do anything to you. Rabbit, no, I'm afraid. Ning Shu let go of the rabbit. The rabbit immediately ran away. Ning Shu smiled. He picked a peach and wiped it on his body. He leaned against the tree and ate the peach. Mission completed. Do you want to leave the mission world? 2333's voice sounded in Ning Shu's mind. Ning Shu nodded, yes. Ning Shu actually wanted to leave this world a long time ago. He was afraid that Hongyu would come back. If she left this world, the person who entrusted her would have returned. Hongyu would have run for nothing. Ning Shu couldn't do anything to Hongyu now, but it didn't mean that he couldn't do anything to her in the future. Ning Shu's vision blurred. When he opened his eyes again, he was already in the system space. Ning Shu collapsed on the sofa and sighed. He touched the water droplet between his eyebrows. Yes, it was still there. This incident really made Ning Shu's heart palpitate. There would be a lot of things like this in the future. Good luck, Ning Shu. She had come so far. The 99 steps had been completed. The last step had to be completed no matter what. In the past, she faced people in the mission. Now, she had to face her colleagues. It was the same. Whoever wanted to snatch her things, she would chop off the hand that reached out to her. She worked so hard to understand the law. Why should she let others take it? Why should they take it? Ning Shu touched the water droplet between his eyebrows. The more people wanted something, the better it was. The good things belonged to her. Those people would be jealous to death. Ning Shu did a self-construction in his heart. Then, he felt that his whole body was full of energy. Fighting with the heavens and fighting with people was really fun. Chapter 17-19. Ning Shu opened the attribute panel and looked at his reward. For this mission, he really put in a lot of effort. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 level, Super Mission Enforcer Points card, 126, 10 million points for 1 point card. Soul, 3 life, 2 wisdom, 5 luck, 5 charm, 1 mental power, 4 force, 5 qualifications, 2 faith, 900 merit, 315 soul strength, 25 authorization ticket, none law comprehension, none pure heart, loyal heart tools, calm aura, calming pill, faith aura, amulet 4, upgraded amulet 2 honorary titles, goddess of war, selfless ancestor skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate close combat technique, intermediate martial arts, intermediate poison technique, beginner business management knowledge, beginner code. Programming, beginner lawyer skill, sage ghost catching skill, beginner cooking skill, intermediate embroidery skill. Aura, mother of the world, queen's blessing, sister model worker, Chen Shi's blessing, leader aura, grass blessing, lifelong best friend, Miao Miao Miao's blessing. Life-saving hand, Zhu Sun Yang's blessing, founding female general, Chen Ermiai's blessing, beauty in law, Chen Ning's blessing, bane of the blood clan, Jasmine's blessing, cross-race communication, Bai Sanyang's blessing, brave heart, Wang Ying's blessing, completed mission enforcer Yuan Liang's wish, live, Snake King is not finished. Mission completion rate, 100%. Received mission reward, 5 points card, 5 attribute points, 70% soul power, 3000 faith, including previous world's accumulation, received an additional 1500 faith, 2000 merit for shielding information. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. He didn't lose much from the gains. Ning Shu distributed 1 point of the immovable lightning attribute. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 level, Super Mission Enforcer Points card, 1265, 10 million points for 1 point card. Soul, 31 life, 21 wisdom, 51 luck, 51 charm, 1 mental power, 4 force, 5 qualifications, 21 faith, 900 merit, 315 soul power, 25 authorization ticket, none law comprehension, none pure heart, loyal heart items, calm halo, tranquilizer, faith halo, amulet 4, upgraded amulet 2. Honorary titles, goddess of war, selfless ancestor skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate close combat technique, intermediate martial arts, intermediate poison technique, beginner business management knowledge, beginner code programming, beginner lawyer skill, sage ghost catching skill, beginner cooking skill, intermediate embroidery skill. Aura, mother of the world, queen's blessing, sister model worker, Chen Shi's blessing, leader aura, grass blessing, lifelong best friend, Miao Miao Miao's blessing. Healer of the dying, Zhu Sun Yang's blessing, founding woman, Chen Ermiai's blessing, beauty in law, Chen Ning's blessing, bane of the blood clan, Jasmine's blessing, communication between races, Bai Sanyang's blessing, heart of the brave, Wang Ying's blessing. After adding the attribute points, Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the sofa and started absorbing the pure soul energy. After absorbing the energy, Ning Shu lay down on the sofa and turned on the screen, intending to check on the situation of the client's return. Ning Shu was more interested in seeing if Hong Yu had gone back. He wanted to see Hong Yu's expression when she failed. Yes, the client, Yuan Liang, used a demon. The power of a demon wasn't something that ordinary people could give up. Ning Shu kept the demon back then to give Yuan Liang the choice. It was better to choose than to be forced to become the child of destiny. However, Ning Shu didn't see Hong Yu despite fast-forwarding. Could it be that Hong Yu didn't return to that world? Instead, he saw An Yuyun in the mental hospital. He actually didn't come out of his crazed state all this time. Furthermore, Yuan Liang would sneak to see An Yuyun when he had nothing to do. In the beginning, he would appear in front of An Yuyun as a bird. However, An Yuyun was always immersed in her own world. It was as though her mental world had collapsed and she couldn't recover from it. Later on, Yuan Liang came less often. When he faced An Yuyun, it was like facing a block of wood. No matter how much he talked to her, she would be hugging a doll. No matter what he said, it was useless. Later on, Yuan Liang gradually stopped coming. Furthermore, Yuan Liang controlled the demon and had more important things to do. It seemed that many demons had gathered and were preparing to let Yuan Liang lead them to attack humans. Ning Shu turned off the screen and opened the chat system. Then, he opened the chat group. Yes, the group was silent. It was so silent that it was scary. As a newbie in the group, Ning Shu felt very awkward. If he spoke and no one responded to him, that would be awkward. It was like a cold Siberian current. Ning Shu decisively closed the chat group. He didn't send any red packets. After all, he didn't know anyone. It was sad to send red packets to get people to talk to him. Then he wouldn't say anything. He didn't know anyone anyway. He wouldn't talk to anyone he couldn't talk to. Ning Shu clicked on Mei Ziqing's profile picture and sent him a message. Mei Ziqing's system replied that Mei Ziqing had gone to do a mission and wasn't at home. It seemed that Mei Ziqing had started to do missions seriously. Ning Shu asked Mei Ziqing's system. It was quite difficult to lock a blank child in the system space. The system space was very quiet. There wasn't much entertainment. Ning Shu chatted with Mei Ziqing's system for a while. Mei Ziqing's system was quite polite to Ning Shu. Ning Shu thought of 2333 saying that Mei Ziqing's system was arrogant. It was probably 2333 who was arrogant. Did 2333 have no EQ? Ning Shu said 2333, go to Water City. He had to see how his city was doing. He had to ask when he could get the taxes. Ning Shu was now very poor, very poor. With a wave of dizziness, Ning Shu stood on the street of Water City. Ning Shu put his hands behind his back and slowly looked around his territory. When he saw trash on the ground, he picked it up and threw it into the bin. It was like throwing trash in his own house. It was very uncomfortable. Ning Shu went to a restaurant to order some food. Although the food in the restaurant was expensive, it tasted good. In his soul state, he wouldn't get fat. Ning Shu walked into the restaurant. A waiter came to welcome Ning Shu and brought him upstairs. I'm not going upstairs. I'll just order something in the main hall, Ning Shu said. The waiter said, my lord, someone is waiting for you upstairs. He said that when you arrived, he would bring you to the private room upstairs. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows in surprise. Who would wait for him? Chapter 1720. Lead the way. Ning Shu said to the waiter and followed him upstairs. The waiter opened the door. The guest is inside. Ning Shu nodded and walked in. She saw Hong Yu, who was dressed in red. When Hong Yu saw Ning Shu, she smiled. You really came back. I said I would leave after a while. Ning Shu sat down opposite Hong Yu and said, actually, you should have expected me to come back. You were waiting for me in Water City. This was too much of a bully. Hong Yu took the teapot and poured a cup of tea. She then poured another cup for Ning Shu. Besides the water law imprint, there is no grudge between us. Ning Shu picked up the teacup and took a sip. Then, he put down the teacup and said indifferently, "So? I'm puzzled. Do I really look like I'm easy to bully?" Ning Shu asked Hong Yu sincerely. He had harmed her in the past. Now that he appeared in front of her so casually, it really made her feel uncomfortable. Extremely uncomfortable. Hong jade-like eyebrows looked at Ning Shu. There was a special charm in her indifference. It's not that I'm easy to bully, but, it's that I'm an ant. I don't need to care about an ant's thoughts and emotions. If Hong Yu was facing Ah Wan, she would definitely not be so calm. Only by caring would an evenly matched opponent be vigilant. "So, why did you come to find me this time? You want me to give up the law imprint in Water City?" Ning Shu really did not understand why Hong Yu came to see him. Hong Yu was also a little puzzled. "Actually, I don't know why I came here. I just wanted to know if you could come back. Thank you for your concern." Ning Shu smiled faintly. Everyone was calm and collected, so she wouldn't be anxious. She was at a disadvantage. The two of them drank tea in silence. Ning Shu put down the teacup. "You're so stingy. You always make me drink tea. It's so boring. It's my fault. Order whatever you want. It's my treat." Hong Yu pushed the exquisite menu in front of Ning Shu. Ning Shu casually flipped through the menu. Hong Yu saw that Ning Shu was just flipping through the list and did not order anything. "I don't like anything." Hong Yu looked at the mark on Ning Shu's forehead and said indifferently. Ning Shu closed the list and pushed it aside. "I don't like it." Ning Shu propped up his chin and looked at Hong Yu. "I just became the city lord. I want to know if I have the authority to expel you from Water City." Hong Yu's expression stiffened. "As the city lord, I naturally have the authority to do so. However, most city lords wouldn't do so." Ning Shu's face suddenly lit up. "If that's the case, then please disappear from my sight. There should be a limit to how much you can disgust people." Ning Shu snapped his fingers, and Hong Yu felt a huge repulsive force from the city. If she was thrown out of Water City, the roaring laws outside would directly annihilate her. Hong Yu looked at Ning Shu, who was smiling at her, and her beautiful eyebrows tightly knitted together. She looked a little angry. Hong Yu stood up. I'm very optimistic about you." "Thank you." Hong Yu disappeared in front of Ning Shu. Ning Shu put down the teacup, opened the menu, and ordered some pastries and drinks. The waiter came up with Ning Shu's order, but a woman followed behind him. The woman walked in and took the lead to greet Ning Shu. "It's an honor for the city lord to visit my restaurant." This woman was dignified and elegant. She wore a cheongsam, like a young lady from a famous family in old Shanghai. A cheongsam was the best way to show off a woman's curves and softness. Ning Shu stood up. "Nice to meet you, nice to meet you. This must be the first time the city lord has come to my restaurant. I'm Shu Bai." "I'm Ning Shu." Shu Bai sat opposite Ning Shu and looked at the pastries and drinks on the table. "These are on me." Ning Shu smiled. "Thank you." Shu Bai was not a simple woman. Since she could open a restaurant, she was probably a rich person. "How's the taste?" Shu Bai asked Ning Shu. "It's very good." Ning Shu nodded. Shu Bai stared at the law imprint on Ning Shu's forehead. Water City has been without a master for a long time. It has always been a few parties plundering Water City. I hope that Water City has a true master. "Welcome," Shu Bai said. Ning Shu smiled. "Thank you. You're the second person to give me your blessings." Everyone looked at her covetously. Shu Bai's blessing surprised Ning Shu. I'm also afraid of being exploited by those people. Wave after wave. Shu Bai smiled without showing her teeth. It's not easy to do business. You're not doing missions anymore. Ning Shu took a sip of his drink and asked. Shu Bai said indifferently, I'm a little tired. I can't remember how long it has been since I did a mission. In fact, doing missions is a very tough thing. Not everyone will be able to endure it. Ning Shu nodded. It's quite tough. After I became a super mission taker, I felt that it was especially strenuous. Shu Bai pushed an exquisite plate in front of Ning Shu. This is our restaurant's signature pastry. Try it. Ning Shu used a fork to pick up the pastry and tasted it carefully. He nodded. It's delicious, but it's very expensive. I didn't dare to order it before. Shu Bai smiled reservedly. You're the city lord. Do you have to be so careful with your food? Ning Shu shrugged. I'm actually a poor child. You opened this restaurant after you stopped doing missions. Ning Shu changed the topic. No matter what, this person in front of him was still considered a senior. Shu Bai said, I don't know if I have this problem or if all women have this problem. What problem? Ning Shu asked while eating the pastry. Sensitive, soft-hearted, fragile, experienced too much, and mentally exhausted, Shu Bai said. Her body was filled with the gentleness of a woman. It should be that most women have this psychological characteristic, Ning Shu said. Some of the female mission takers I know disappeared. Some couldn't bear such a life and got together with their loved ones. In the end, we lost contact. I don't know how they are doing now. Shu Bai stirred her coffee. I don't even dare to think about their current situation. I don't even know if they still exist now. Ning Shu suddenly understood why there were so few women standing at the top. It was because women were emotional, cute, compassionate, and kind. If it was an ordinary woman, these were all cute qualities. However, some women couldn't bear the long life of a mission taker. Especially when it came to education for women, it was all about keeping them in captivity. Women fundamentally thought that they couldn't compare to men. They were weak and needed to rely on others. So what if I'm strong? I'd rather be with the person I love than doing quests endlessly like this. Love was eternal. Women were kind and gentle. To a certain extent, they weren't as decisive as men. Women magnified their own weakness and were more afraid of loneliness than men. Chapter 17:21. It was better to marry well than to do well. This sentence was deeply rooted in people's hearts. Sometimes, when you were working hard, the people around you would use this sentence to mock you. When did working hard become a mistake? This sentence clearly defined women as reproductive machines. At the end of the day, it was human laziness. It could also be said that women used their reproductive ability in exchange for resources to survive. All roads lead to Rome. It was not like this was the only way to go. They still had to take this as the truth. It was a good thing to have love in one's heart. However, it was disgusting to say that people were cold, heartless, and unreasonable. If they did not fulfill their love, they were cold, heartless, and unreasonable. When Shu Bai talked about the people she knew, she felt a little sad. Ning Shu said, "Why am I talking to you about this? It's making you sad for no reason." Ning Shu asked Shu Bai, "Have you never thought of doing missions? Sometimes, people rely on one breath to hold on. When this string is loose, I don't want to be tense anymore," Shu Bai said leisurely. "It's quite good now. I'm doing a small business and living a leisurely life," Shu Bai said gently. Ning Shu nodded. "Everyone has their own goals." Shu Bai smiled. "There's no such thing as having the best of both worlds. If you don't want to climb up and become stronger, you can't do whatever you want. However, I'm tired. Ning Shu put down his fork. I've never thought of doing missions again. Mission enforcers have a long life. They have to find something to do. Sometimes, missions are quite interesting. Shu Bai smiled indifferently. I'm all alone now. How can I do missions? I was too tired back then. In order not to delay the system, I've already separated myself from the system. Back then, he even advised me not to cut ties so decisively. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the chance to regret in the future. Ning Shu, you've separated yourself from the system? Ning Shu was surprised. Didn't you say that the system and the mission enforcer are one? That's true. If the mission giver is completely erased, the system will also be completely erased. However, the system has the right to request to leave the host and change to another partner. However, the price is that my memory will be erased once again. Everything has a price. In other words, the system that has gone through life and death with me in the past no longer recognizes me, nor does it remember me, White Book said with melancholy. If I were given another chance, I would still choose to do the same thing. Because I'm already mentally and physically exhausted. If I continue, I'll definitely implicate him and be completely obliterated together with me. Ning Shu tapped his finger on the table, making tapping sounds, indicating that Ning Shu's heart was not calm. Ning Shu did not expect the system to have such authority. In other words, if 2333 wanted to leave her, it was not impossible. However, their memories would be erased, and they would never know each other again. 2333 said, it's not that simple. Otherwise, I would have left you a long time ago. Generally speaking, this kind of contract is bound to a dead end. This person must have paid a huge price to make the system leave her. Ning Shu looked at White Book and said, you're the most gentle person I've ever met. White Book was reserved for a moment. I don't know what to say when you praise me like that. I don't have the tenacity of a strong person. I also understand that I won't be able to go far. It's too tiring. Ning Shu had reservations about White Book. It was not easy to open a restaurant like this. Moreover, it was opened in a space of laws. Do the restaurants in other cities of laws belong to you? Ning Shu asked. It seemed that all the cities of laws were the same. It was exactly the same. White Book shook her head. No, the owners of each city are different. Ning Shu made an "oh" sound and stretched lazily. It's really good to eat. Ning Shu said, since you like it, do you want to bring some back? Ning Shu waved his hand. It's eating and taking. Forget it. He would not die if he ate less. Ning Shu still paid the bill and spent more than 500 faith power. He was not familiar with White Book and did not have much money. There was no need for him to take advantage of her. White Book shook her head and said, I can still afford to treat you to pastries. Ning Shu took back his identity card. I know you can afford it, but you still have to pay the bill. He had to maintain his dignity as the city lord. If word got out that she was short-sighted and ate wherever she went, she would represent the image of Water City. White Book smiled slightly. She was like an elegant and charming white orchid flower, full of gentleness and shyness. The temperament of a woman was fully displayed on her body. However, Ning Shu did not think that she was a simple woman. The daily turnover of the restaurant was not a small number. Moreover, the people who came to the restaurant were all super mission enforcers. It was impossible to deter these mission enforcers without sufficient strength. White Book sent Ning Shu to the entrance of the restaurant. Ning Shu said, you don't have to send me off. I will walk around by myself. White Book said reservedly and gently, in the future, the city lord should come to my restaurant more often. Ning Shu nodded. He understood what White Book meant. He wanted to use her name to deter the people who caused trouble. In Water City, Ning Shu was equivalent to a local tyrant. He had absolute power. However, if he went overboard, some mission enforcers would report it. The city lord's power was great, but it was limited to his own city. He could not leave the city, let alone do whatever he wanted in other people's cities. Ning Shu wandered around and walked to the entrance of the auction house. When he thought of the 500 merit points entrance fee, he turned around and walked away. She could also exchange 500 merit points for a better item. But here, she could only watch the fun and see how happy people were buying things. It was a critical hit. After walking around and checking the situation of the barrier, he said to 2333, "Let's go back to the system space." Ning Shu felt dizzy. He went back to the system space and lay down on the sofa, ready to sleep. He really felt a little tired. He was doing missions alone. Now, he was in contact with more and more mission enforcers. There were all kinds of people and all kinds of personalities. What they showed might not necessarily be what they thought. Ning Shu dealt with the changes by remaining unchanged. She was slowly getting stronger and people were starting to take her seriously. This was the glory of the strong. No matter what thoughts they had, whether they were afraid of her, fawning on her, or jealous, this was the glory of the strong. Ning Shu stretched out and found the most comfortable position. He asked 2333, "What are the conditions for the system to separate from the mission enforcer?" After a while, 2333 said, "I knew you would ask. Generally speaking, it is impossible to separate. If we die together. If we live together." "I see." Ning Shu was a little curious about the price White Book paid to separate from the system. Of course, White Book separated from the system more so that her system could have a new beginning. Chapter 1722. Shu Bai felt that she couldn't continue to do missions. However, she didn't want to ruin the system's future. Therefore, she decided to sever her relationship with the system. Ning Shu thought about it again. If he was in the same situation as Shu Bai, would he do the same thing? Let 2333 go. Ning Shu, he. Everything was self-explanatory. What are you laughing at? 2333 Ning Shu asked. His laughter was creepy. Ning Shu smiled and said, "I'm thinking about what I would do if I were in the same situation as Shu Bai." "You would drag me down to hell with you," 2333 said directly. Ning Shu pouted. "Do I look like that kind of person? We went through life and death together. Do I look like a cold, heartless, and unreasonable person?" 2333, "Yes, that's right. You are that kind of person. Do you want to leave?" 2333 Ning Shu asked. Ning Shu shook his head. "No. I just know that there is a little bit of hope. Suddenly, I feel that life is full of hope." 2333 There is basically no hope. Even if I report that I don't get along with my partner and that I'm not interested in leaving, the higher-ups will only tell me to get lost, 2333 said helplessly. "What are you going to do if you want to leave me?" Ning Shu shrugged. "I'm all alone. I don't have anything. Also, when did I say that I want to leave you? If I leave you, I won't be able to do missions." 2333 said, "It's good that you can think like that. Do you think that you can meet a better system if you leave me?" Ning Shu, "I don't know if I will meet a better system. Let's just make do with each other." They had been together for so long. It wasn't easy to get a new system. "What do you mean by making do with each other?" "I think we get along very well," 2333 said. There was a hint of sadness in his voice. "Ning Shu, they get along very well." Ning Shu didn't know what 2333 meant by happy. If they were really happy, 2333's standards were really low. Ning Shu yawned and began to sleep on the sofa. Finally, the topic ended. Ning Shu was sleeping soundly when she heard the sound of the chatting system. 2333 woke up Ning Shu. The group chat seems to be very lively. Ning Shu rubbed her eyes and opened the chat group in the chat system. It was very lively. Previously, they had not spoken, but now, the messages kept jumping. Ning Shu did not understand what was going on. However, as soon as he opened it, many people tagged him. When did she become popular? Why were there so many people tagging her? Ning Shu scrolled through the chat history to see what had happened. Ning Shu tapped on the screen and scrolled up the chat history. However, the more he looked, the tighter his frown became. The first thing that happened was that Ning Shu, the newly appointed City Lord of Water City, had directly expelled Hongyu. Judging from the description, Ning Shu was a reckless person who didn't give any face to his seniors. Did he think that he could do whatever he wanted after becoming the Law Incarnation? The more Ning Shu read, the funnier it became. In the end, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. From an unknown mission enforcer, he had now become the target of discussion. From beginning to end, Hongyu did not say a word, nor did she pretend to be pitiful. It was just a bunch of people blindly making a fuss. The main thing was that Ning Shu, a person who had suddenly appeared and comprehended the law of water, was indeed eye-catching. Many people tagged Ning Shu, but Ning Shu did not reply. I don't even know you, why should I explain to you? What you think has nothing to do with me. Hongyu did not speak, and neither did Ning Shu. Then, some people started to talk about Ning Shu being a little arrogant. Ning Shu ignored these people. Although you say that I'm arrogant, and it seems to be right, I won't listen. There were also people who asked Ning Shu to apologize to Hongyu, but Ning Shu ignored them all. Do you think I'll apologize just because you say so? Ning Shu heard a ding-dong sound. Someone had sent him a message. He saw that it was a message from Ah Wan. Why did you have a conflict with Hongyu? Ning Shu, she's the one who came to find trouble with me. Ah Wan pondered for a moment. She must have taken a fancy to your law of water and wanted to compete with me. Be careful, Hongyu is not an open-minded person. Ning Shu shrugged. There was no other way. The conflict had already started. Ning Shu asked, then why did she fight with you when we're both mission enforcers? There were many powerful people, so why was Hongyu eyeing Ah Wan? Ah Wan, because we're often compared. Whenever there's a topic, the two of us are tied together. She should be more annoyed, so she wants to suppress me. Ning Shu, what about you? Ah Wan, I don't care. There are so many mouths in the world. Who should I listen to? No one needs to listen. Forever luck can't satisfy everyone. It can't make everyone like it. Ning Shu thanked Ah Wan. After all, Wan had come to remind him. Things were already like this. Time had turned back, but she still chose to do it. A group of people who didn't know the truth couldn't change Ning Shu's heart. Ning Shu rested his head on his arm and couldn't help but laugh. He laughed very happily. 2333, what are you laughing about? Ning Shu asked 2333, do you think I'm causing a lot of trouble? 2333, no, it's just that you haven't shown enough strength to make people look up to you. That's why there are such rumors. Ning Shu shrugged. This was a bit awkward. With Ning Shu's current state, many people felt that she was lucky. She was someone who was suddenly struck by good luck. Everyone thought that if it were them, they would also be able to understand the law of water. Ning Shu switched to the chat group. Seeing the turbulent discussions, Ning Shu rolled his eyes. I just said a few words. What can you do to me? Can you press my head down and apologize to Hongyu? As for what happened in the plane, Ning Shu was too lazy to talk about it. If he had the time, he might as well read a book. Whether she was dissatisfied or had other thoughts, she was still the City Lord of Water City. She was the embodiment of the law of water. This was something that couldn't be changed. Ning Shu closed the chat group. Out of sight, out of mind. Besides, she didn't kill or set fire, didn't do anything out of line, and didn't want to kill people for their treasures like Hongyu did. Ning Shu was fearless. In his own territory, he couldn't expel a person. Then what was the use of the law that she worked so hard to understand? So what if she was arrogant and domineering? You can't get rid of me just because you don't like me. Moreover, this matter was only spread among the group of law incarnations. It wouldn't be widely spread. The chat system dinged. Someone sent a message to Ning Shu again. It was the first time so many people were looking for her. Ning Shu opened it and saw that it was a message from the Law of Time's incarnation, the man in the Cheongsam. Chapter 1723. Ning Shu clicked on the message sent by the man in Cheongsam. He asked Ning Shu why he had a conflict with Hongyu. Ning Shu said casually, "Why? Are you trying to persuade me to apologize to her?" "Man in Cheongsam, I didn't ask you to apologize to her. It's normal for mission enforcers to have conflicts. You might have become enemies during a mission or for various reasons. I just didn't expect you to have a conflict so soon." Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. "So, you already expected this? Man in Cheongsam, isn't it obvious? Your law imprint was predetermined by Hongyu." Ning Shu clicked her tongue. In that case, Hongyu was quite domineering. Man in Cheongsam, she's not weak. Plus, she has a strong background. She's always been suppressed by Wan because Wan is the embodiment of the law of fire. Hongyu has obtained the law of water. It's impossible to say who's more powerful between them. Ning Shu just wanted to roll his eyes. If she had the ability, she should have comprehended it herself. The law that she comprehended was assumed to belong to Hongyu. As long as Hongyu got her hands on it, it would belong to her. Damn, the law of water was a bit of a hot potato. Whether it was Ning Shu or anyone else who comprehended the law of water, they couldn't escape the fate of being targeted by Hongyu. "Ning Shu, man in Cheongsam, is there anything else you want to talk to me about?" "Man in Cheongsam, no, I just wanted to see if you peed your pants. It seems that you're in a better state than I thought. If you can't even protect your own things, then you're too useless." Ning Shu, metal, wood, water, fire, earth, space, time, light, and darkness. Aren't these laws more powerful? Why don't they take yours and bully the newbie? Man in Cheongsam, she wouldn't dare. I'm not afraid of her background either. When we fight, it's okay even if I kill Hongyu. Ning Shu gave him a thumbs up. Awesome. You're so powerful. Man in Cheongsam, do you want to be my girlfriend? I have some face. Ning Shu, even through the screen, Ning Shu could feel the overwhelming coquettish aura. Right now, the Cheongsam man must be fanning himself furiously. Ning Shu did not forget the Cheongsam man's evaluation of him. He was a female. The man in the Cheongsam had very low requirements. He just wanted to find a female. Ning Shu was silent for a moment, then said, "Don't limit yourself to females. You can find a man." Cheongsam man, what do you mean? Ning Shu, boyfriends and girlfriends are the same thing. For people like us who have transcended, there's no need to reproduce. It doesn't matter whether we're male or female. Cheongsam man, go to hell. I'm going to kill you for Hongyu. Ning Shu shrugged his shoulders. He had always wanted to be single, but the Cheongsam man had never been able to take that step. He did not know if there was any psychological problem. He only dared to talk big, but when he got serious, he withered away. What a coward. Ning Shu gloated in his heart. However, when two people were together, they had to shoulder each other's lives. It was too heavy and too sacred. He had to work hard to make himself better, and then make the other party better too. Ning Shu opened the Law Incarnation group and saw that they were still discussing this matter. It was fermenting and getting more and more intense. As the main character of the discussion, Ning Shu was leisurely. She would not cry, because the bitch would laugh. She reached out and took out the Peerless Martial Arts book from the bookshelf. She had to quickly build a world. Just having a law imprint was of no use at all. Having a world that belonged to him was the right way to go. Ning Shu looked at the Peerless Martial Arts book and did not know why she felt like crying. She held the Peerless Martial Arts book in her arms. It had been with her from the beginning until now. It was what she relied on. When it was dug out from the bottom of the box, the Peerless Martial Arts book had already become moldy. Ning Shu hoped that the Peerless Martial Arts book could become a world with the heavenly Tao. It could evolve on its own and give birth to a world of all things. It was also for herself. She suddenly felt a little nostalgic. Ning Shu smiled. Her face bloomed with a gentle light. The luster of the water droplet on her forehead flashed, gentle but not dazzling. From nothing to now, Ning Shu felt very satisfied. The future was still long, very long. Ning Shu placed the Peerless Martial Arts book on the bookshelf, took out a book, and then sat on the sofa to read. No matter how turbulent the chat group was, she had blocked the messages. When she was doing missions, no one could locate her location. Even if they wanted to find trouble, they could not find her. Anger them to death. Ning Shu tilted her head, supported her chin with her hand, and looked at the black hole on the wall. The black hole slowly rotated, and she could not see the end of it. The darkness could swallow everything. Ning Shu 2333 said, "This hole is already very obvious. I think he's sick." 2333 I think so too. He's sick. Ning Shu rubbed her face and sighed helplessly. What the hell was this thing? She had been seriously held back by this thing. She could not even remember how long it had been since she last saw the client. She was afraid that the client would come in and be swallowed by the black hole. That would be terrible. In order to avoid such a situation, she did not receive the client in the system space. There was also no way to communicate with the client face to face. By communicating face to face, she could better understand what the client was thinking and what the client wanted. Ning Shu looked 45 degrees at the bright and sad sky. A true warrior faced a bleak life directly. Ning Shu felt that she was about to evolve into Ultraman. Ning Shu opened the exchange store and slowly browsed through it page by page. She found that there were too many things in the system store. It really had everything. There were thousands of things. There were all kinds of strange items. How much money did the system store make every day? With so many mission takers, even if each of them exchanged for one thing, the sales would be terrifying. Ning Shu's first reaction when she saw something was, wow, how much money did it cost? After seeing so many things, she would think about the benefits behind it. Most importantly, she was always thinking about her little bit of tax. Ning Shu asked 2333, when can I get the money? According to the time in the law space, you will get the money every 6 months. Can I go to every household and ask for it? Ning Shu asked hesitantly. You can ask for it yourself, or you can ask directly from the main system. The main system will collect the tax for you and then give it to you. 2333 said. Ning Shu rubbed her hands, blinked and asked, I can collect it myself. Do I collect it myself and ask for as much as I want? Oh, there is a document sent by the higher-ups. There is a fluctuation in the tax. Some of the small benefits are allowed. You can ask for more tax from the shops, but there is a limit. 2333 said. Some city lords collect more, some collect less. For example, the basic law is that cities with more people will have higher taxes. It is determined by the prosperity of the city. Chapter 1724. Ning Shu rubbed his chin. There were so many ways to collect taxes. Ning Shu was just an inexperienced city lord, so he didn't know about these things at all. Ning Shu thought about it and decided to ask someone for advice. Ning Shu asked 2333, how much faith power or merit do you think I should collect? 2333 replied, according to the tax collection conditions on the document, generally 5 to 10% of the store's net profit can be adjusted according to the situation of your city. According to the flow of people in Water City, 10% of the tax is also possible. 2333 said, of course, there are also some gray profits. For example, some shops give out extra profits. These are not included in the tax. Of course, you have to pay taxes too. In addition, 5% of your taxes will be taken out. Ning Shu, this is like the big fish eating the small fish, and the small fish eating the shrimps. 2333 nodded, that's right, at least you are now in the middle of the food chain. This is the power of being powerful. 2333 said in a low voice, like the sound of a drum, which made her heart beat violently. Yes, she deserved all this. She worked hard to get it, in exchange for the right to speak, to be able to do as she pleased. Ning Shu looked at the document. I have to ask how the taxes were collected in the past. In the past, several law incarnations jointly managed Water City. Shubai said that they were exploited again and again. It seemed that the law incarnations that temporarily managed Water City in the past had exploited Water City quite a bit. Ning Shu opened the chat system, thought about it, and clicked on the profile picture of the Chongsam man. Ning Shu realized that he didn't know anyone in the law group. He decided to ask the Chongsam man. Chongsam man, I'm already dead. If you have something to burn, come see me. Unless you're dead, I'll summon your soul if it's small, I'll dig your grave if it's big. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. He was already so old, yet he was still so stupid. Ning Shu, I have something to ask you. Please come back to life. Chongsam man, what is it? I want to collect a consultation fee. I'm in a bad mood now, very bad. Ning Shu, okay, it's my fault. Ning Shu, I want to know how you guys collect taxes. The Chongsam man said in a very official manner, just collect taxes according to the regulations on the document. Well, it seemed that this was a rather taboo topic. Ning Shu asked again, now that the incarnation of the law of wind and thunder has been obliterated, who is in charge of the city of wind and the city of thunder? Chongsam man, it's already been divided. You have no chance. Ning Shu did not ask further. She was not familiar with the man in the Chongsam. There was no need for him to tell her this. Ning Shu thanked the Chongsam man politely and closed the chat system. It seemed that he still had to check out his own city. Ning Shu 2333 said, let's go to Water City. When they arrived at Water City, Ning Shu took the lead and went to the gambling house to meet the owner, Si Tian. Si Tian gave Ning Shu the feeling that he was like a beautiful Zhuge Liang, the kind of person with a shrewd heart. Si Tian was wearing a gray and white deep robe with wide sleeves, looking very elegant. Si Tian's facial features were not exquisite, but that kind of casual and calm look made people ignore his face. He was always so calm. Si Tian greets the city lord. Does the city lord have any orders for coming to my humble abode? Si Tian cupped his hands and asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu went straight to the point and said, this time I'm here to understand the tax issue. Si Tian picked up the exquisite teapot and poured tea for Ning Shu, saying, whatever the city lord wants to know, Si Tian will tell you everything I know. Ning Shu nodded, tell me about the tax before. How much was it collected? Si Tian took a sip of tea and gently put down the teacup, it used to be 10. The additional incarnation of the law of wind, earth, and ice would each take 1, which means that the tax rate was 1/3. Ning Shu nodded, I understand. I'll take my leave. Si Tian could not help but raise his eyebrows and leave. Si Tian stood at the window upstairs and looked at Ning Shu walking on the street. He saw that Ning Shu casually entered a shop. Si Tian's expression changed slightly, and he sighed silently in his heart. He had just told a small lie, but it might be exposed. Ning Shu visited many shops on a few streets before he finally arrived at Shu Bai's restaurant. Ning Shu directly went to the private room upstairs and said to the waiter, "Can I trouble your boss to come over?" The waiter brewed a pot of tea for Ning Shu and then went to invite Shu Bai. When Shu Bai came over, Ning Shu asked, "Is there anything the city lord needs?" Ning Shu lifted his chin, "Have a seat. I have something to ask you." Shu Bai sat down and used a simple hairpin to tie up her hair. Her hair was loose and elegant, and the pendant of the hairpin swayed slightly. "As for me, I ended up at your restaurant because of hope. Tell me the truth. I've visited many shops and asked about taxes. Guess what?" Ning Shu asked Shu Bai with a smile. Shu Bai smiled reservedly and lowered her head gently. It should be that everyone lied about the tax situation. Everyone wants to pay less. Ning Shu nodded, "I can understand. However, they treat me like a retard. They actually told me that the flow of water in Water City is only 2% of the tax." Shu Bai covered her mouth and laughed, "It's normal to bully strangers and the weak. I came to find you because I want to know what the real tax situation is like. I think that the slightly more reliable tax is the 13% that Si Tian mentioned." Ning Shu held the tea and slowly sipped it. It tasted pretty good. Shu Bai shook her head. Si Tian said too little. "It turns out that this place is managed by the incarnations of the earth, wind, and ice laws. The tax is 18%, but it's 10% on the books. In fact, it's split equally between the three of them." Ning Shu nodded, 18%. "Why did you tell me that it's 2%? The difference was like heaven and earth. Do you guys fake the books?" Ning Shu tilted his head and asked Shu Bai. Shu Bai's mouth twitched. "Everyone's spending records and identity cards are just for fun. All spending is transparent in front of the main system." Ning Shu nodded. Human intelligence was not to be underestimated. The higher-ups had their own plans and countermeasures. Ning Shu asked Shu Bai, "How does the city lord plan to collect the taxes? Then I'll take the liberty to ask, how much is the net profit of your store?" Ning Shu asked. Shu Bai stretched out 5 jade-white fingers, 50,000. Ning Shu guessed. Close to 500,000. Ning Shu, what the fuck? That's a lot of money. Ning Shu was so shocked that he almost flipped the table. 500,000 merit points or 500,000 power of faith? Ning Shu asked again. Adding both together, it's close to 500,000. In terms of earning money, Si Tian's gambling house is still the best. Shu Bai dragged Si Tian into the water. Ning Shu counted with his fingers. If 500,000 was calculated according to the 10% tax, that would be 50,000. Chapter 1725. Oh my, just the taxes of a restaurant for half a year was already 50,000, and there were other taxes as well. Ning Shu was laughing in his heart, but he did not show it on his face. This was the feeling of lying down and collecting money. How much do you think I should collect? Ning Shu asked Shu Bai. Shu Bai said reservedly, the city lord is the city lord of Water City. The amount of taxes should be decided by the city lord. Oh, you mean it's okay to collect 18%? You guys can also afford it. Shu Bai, don't worry, I'm still a very kind person. I can't do 18% of the taxes, so 10%. Shu Bai smiled, you're quite kind. Compared to before, you're quite kind. I'm one person. Before, there were 3 people. After dividing it up, it's not even as much as me. Ning Shu came out of the restaurant. After returning to the system space, he reissued the tax notice to inform all the shops that the tax was 10%, and they were not allowed to be late. Then, Ning Shu planned to lie down and collect the money. How fortunate. Si Tian looked at the tax notice and raised his eyebrows. It seemed that 13% was too high. Si Tian put down the notice. Whether it was to establish his benevolent image or because he was a new city lord and did not dare to ask for too much, no matter what, it was still a profit for them. Si Tian curled his lips. Ning Shu solved the tax issue, stretched, and exchanged for some fasting pills and water. Ning Shu confirmed with 2333 again, has my location been blocked? Ning Shu did not want a quest taker to suddenly appear in the middle of a quest, and one that came for him. It's been blocked. Don't worry, 2333 Ning Shu said, I dare not be careless about this kind of thing. Ning Shu had become a target of some people, and it would also hinder 2333's system. Ning Shu nodded, that's good. Now that her foundation is weak, her wings will slowly grow. Then let's go do the quest. Ning Shu smiled sweetly. Now, doing quests was not only for the power of the soul, but also to find the origin of the world and rush toward the path of building a world. Ning Shu felt his soul fuse into a body, and the body was very stiff. Ning Shu wanted to move his body, but his body was held down by someone. Ning Shu opened his eyes and saw mud and grass. The tip of his nose was filled with the smell of soil. Ning Shu saw a centipede-like insect crawling in front of him. She was now lying on the ground, releasing her spiritual power, surrounded by a humid tropical forest. Someone had a hand on her head. Other than her, there were many other people wearing military green clothes with colorful makeup on their faces. Ning Shu turned his head slightly and saw a determined side profile. His facial features were deep. Even if his face was covered in colorful makeup, from the outline of his face, this man was not bad looking. They were probably doing some sort of mission. Ning Shu tried his best to accept the plot as quickly as possible. The atmosphere was very tense. In short, this was the sweet story of a military marriage. However, it was not the client, but the man next to the client. It was a romantic love story with a soldier, and this soldier was an officer with a high position and power. The client was called Wu Jing, a Special Forces soldier, and a qualified female Special Forces soldier. The man next to her was Wu Jing's superior, Song Yi, the male lead of this story. Now they were carrying out a special mission. A transnational drug dealer was transporting drugs to the country through this place. Their current mission was to solve this batch of drugs and prevent it from entering the country. Song Yi was a man with integrity, patriotism, and a strong sense of responsibility. He had all the advantages of a soldier. Hardworking, patient, sacrifice, dedication, rigorous, brave, and responsible. He was an officer with a bright future. Wearing a military uniform, he was fascinating. Wu Jing's heart was filled with awe and admiration for this superior. What moved them even more was that this officer had led them to lay down their lives for the country, shed their blood, and protect it. Patriotism was in their blood, and they sacrificed their lives for the country behind them. They loved their country. Although it was not good enough in some aspects, it allowed them to become citizens and be upright people. At least they would not become refugees without a country. Born in the country, raised in the country, and died in the country. Wu Jing's feelings for Song Yi were mixed with faith and reverence. Wu Jing was a child of an ordinary family. When she first joined the army, she was unexpectedly selected for special forces training. Wu Jing knew that it was impossible between her and Song Yi. She respected this superior very much. Wu Jing thought that this officer would lead them to continue like this and protect the glory of the country. Things had changed. Song Yi had gotten married. Song Yi's wife was the daughter of Song Yi's superior. Song Yi's superior saw that Song Yi was a good young man and would be a promising person in the future, so he decisively married his daughter to Song Yi. It could be said that it was forced. Song Yi's wife was called Wu Xianro. She was a fashionable girl. Suddenly, her father married a stranger who was a soldier. She was unwilling and made a fuss. But she was still forced to marry and become a soldier's wife. Song Yi was a generous person, and he treated his future wife very well. However, the situation was like a wild dog with rectal prolapse, completely out of control. Song Yi began to pamper his wife. As long as Wu Xianro was wronged outside, military planes and off-road vehicles would immediately appear to support Wu Xianro. These things originally belonged to the country. Now, Song Yi was using them privately. As Song Yi's career rose, the power in his hands also increased. Mobilizing the army for a woman was a common thing. The superiors gave him a mission. But if something happened to Wu Xianro, Song Yi would reject the mission and choose Wu Xianro first. Wu Jing was stunned. She did not understand how her indomitable officer had become like this. It was as if he was a completely different person. He pampered Wu Xianro unconditionally. There were no principles, no right or wrong. Wu Jing was disappointed and sad. She felt that her superior had become Wu Xianro's perfect husband. What he had to do every day was to support Wu Xianro. He appeared at the occasions that Wu Xianro needed. The other soldiers' wives were enduring loneliness and understanding the responsibility of a soldier's husband. Soldiers used their lives to interpret the sacred mission. Soldiers' wives used loneliness and longing to reflect that holiness. Soldiers used their youth and hot-bloodedness to protect the country. Soldiers used their strength to protect the soldiers' homes. Soldiers used their strength to protect the country's borders. Soldiers used their strength to protect the country's borders. Even the soldiers' wives who accompanied their husbands had to wake up in the middle of the night when they might have to go on a mission. They also had to prepare for their husbands. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.